This program is underwritten in part by
the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority supports business growth in the USVI with tax incentives, low-interest loans, neighborhood revitalization programs, and commercial space. Learn more at usvieda.org.
and viewers like you.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to WTJX TV's live coverage of Governor Albert Bryan Jr.'s 7th State of the Territory address. I'm Marcelina Ventura Douglas, radio news reporter for the WTJX news feed on WTJX FM 93.1. We're coming to you live from our St. Croix studio. Whether you're watching online or at WTJX.org, following along on Facebook or YouTube, thank you for joining us. Within the hour, Governor Bryan will deliver his address to the 36th Legislature of the Virgin Islands from the Earl B. Otley Legislative Hall on St. Thomas. He's expected to share an update on the state of the territory, including key issues like the economy and tourism, inflationary pressures, ongoing energy challenges, and the status of recovery and infrastructure projects. Stay with us after the speech for reactions from members of the 36th Legislature, and we'd like to hear from you, our viewing audience. Joining me in the studio tonight is a powerful panel ready to provide context and insight ahead of the governor's remarks. Usi Richards is a former senator from the St. Croix district who served 5 terms in the legislature and as Senate president. Donna Fred Gregory is another former Senate president and 3-term senator from the St. Thomas-St. John district. And Jenica Simon is the editor of the Virgin Islands Consortium, a leading news outlet covering politics, business, and community issues in the territory. And Hugo Hodge Jr. is an entrepreneur and former CEO of the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority. He is also the governor's representative on the panel. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here tonight. And just to let you know, I will be addressing you informally throughout the evening so that we can keep things a little bit more relaxed and conversational, okay? So I want to talk about, what you would like to hear during tonight's State of the Territory address. I'd like for you to briefly tell me what your top issue is and what you're hoping the governor will address. So Donna, please tell me what are you hoping to hear this evening?
Well, my top issue is the status of the well over $20 billion in federal funds that the territory has received for disaster recovery. So I'm hoping to hear where things are and where we're going.
Okay. Janika, what are you hoping to hear this evening?
Well, more economic data. I really think that Virgin Islanders need a clear-eyed assessment of the state of the territory's finances, economy, and how, revenue and expenditures are being balanced, and any structural issues that may occur, that may be occurring.
Okay. Hugo, what are you hoping to hear from the governor this evening?
I'm interested in infrastructure, in particular what we're doing with the school constructions, where we are in that process. But infrastructure is key for me tonight.
Okay. And Usi, what are you hoping to hear?
Well, it appears that we, in the majority, at least 3 of the panelists are concerned about the infrastructure, and I'll take it a little further down the road in regards to healthcare, education, our schools, our roads. I think it's important, since we have these monies that have been allotted, approved, or disbursed to the government of the Virgin Islands, what is the real status of spending the money and getting the projects done?
Mm-hmm. And speaking of infrastructure, sewage spilling into the streets is one of the issues that I've reported on frequently this past year on the WTJX news feed, as overflows happened across the territory. In the last State of the Territory address, the governor spoke about an upgrade that was meant to help address the problem in downtown Christiansted on St. Croix. Let's take a look at what he said and what's happened since then.
Christiansted has undergone extensive modernization of its underground utilities in the last few years. Most recently, the Waste Management Authority completed a considerable upgrade of its wastewater system. That upgrade solves many issues we have experienced over the years with clogged sewer lines and overflowing manholes running sewer into the streets.
Whenever there's a heavy rain, we will have flooding in that general area of King Cross Street. a general odor that is really unacceptable to eat in for sure, but even walking by it is just kind of unpleasant.
At no point in time is the streets running with sewage in anybody's best interest. So they've failed us in a very dramatic way.
This is active sewer water. If you look down closely, you can actually see toilet paper in here, coming up out of the water and going straight down into Christiansted Harbor. So we've numerous times requested somebody to do something about it, but it seems to me that no one is really paying attention.
Now, Hugo, I want to ask you, the governor apparently spoke maybe a bit prematurely last year when he spoke about the problem to fix downtown Christiansted. You know, as you just saw, we also saw sewage spills that continued across the territory. We see in Windward Passage on St. Thomas, in Cruz Bay on St. John as well, too. Is the Bryan Roach administration doing enough to tackle this crisis? And do you think he's going to address it this evening in his address?
Well, I imagine it'll be addressed in the address tonight. How you determine enough is what's key. It's never going to be enough if there's sewage still in the streets or still being present. But we have an infrastructure issue, particularly with the things we don't see. Those things that are underground that may be designed for 30 years, life expectancy that have been in ground for 80 and 90 years. It's just a daunting task that has to be addressed, but there's no easy solution to it.
Now, Delegate Plaskett recently announced more than $2 billion in federal grants to restore wastewater facilities on St. Thomas and St. John. And of course, this is not an overnight solution. In the meantime, Donna, what do you think the governor and waste management needs to focus on in order to address this?
To your point, it's definitely not an easy solution, and it requires funding. And waste management in particular continues to be challenged with resources and funding. I really believe that we have to get to a point in the Virgin Islands where we begin to really look at how do we engage our citizenry to begin to cover some of these expenses, because we cannot continue on the path that we are on with the expectation that government will be able to fund these type of challenges that we have. Absolutely.
And, you know, speaking on the path that we're on, Usi, the waste management has also struggled with trash collection on St. Croix. Now, it's been without permanent leadership for 5 months now. Has this experiment of making waste management a semi-autonomous agency, you know, has it ultimately failed? And, you know, do you think it's time for the governor to consider putting it back under the Department of Public Works?
I was fortunate enough to be in the legislature when they created the Waste Management Authority, and I was one that did not vote to support it. I think that the requirement that was spoken of in regards to Donna's statement is that it needed to be properly structured where we could actually finance the services that government does need to provide to our citizenry. I would say to myself that it requires a reevaluation of why we had initially created the Waste Management Authority, and to make a determination of how best to move forward and ensure that the necessary services are being rendered.
Now, let's turn to the Paul E. Joseph Stadium, a long-delayed construction project that predates Governor Bryan's administration. In his initial State of the Territory address in 2019, the governor promised to get the project moving and finished during his tenure. On Sunday, St. Croix Senator Franklin Johnson expressed deep disappointment over the lack of progress, noting a near standstill at the worksite during one of his weekly accountability visits. Despite years of anticipation, the project remains unfinished, and the governor didn't mention it at all in last year's State of the Territory address. Here's a look back at what the governor has said about the stadium over the years.
In the last transition, the construction of the Paul E. Joseph was delayed along with several other projects. This cannot and will not continue. Without question, our administration remains committed to the renovation of the Paul E. Joseph Stadium in Frederiksted. And we anticipate that the long-awaited completion will happen within the next 12 months. We continue our efforts to reconstruct Paul E. Joseph Stadium. The Polly Joseph Stadium in Frederickson. Is also nearing completion. As the dirt and debris are cleared from the front of this monolith, we could finally see the promise of a Polly Joseph Stadium we have been hearing about for 12 years.
All the money is there. We're just waiting for the contractor to get their stuff together and complete the work, and that's been the hold up there. None on our part. There is in all transparency, there is a delayed contract cost that they're assessing on us for about $2 million. So we try to figure out the easiest and best way to finish this project. We just want to get it done.
Now, Janika, in November, during a government house press briefing, the governor blamed the MAP administration for delays that led to $2 million in contract penalties for the Polly Joseph Stadium project. But halfway through his second term, do you think that Governor Bryan still has the right to blame a previous administration? Or should he just take responsibility and just own it?
I think that I don't know how long the honeymoon period can last for new administrations, but I think that it's definitely over by now. We've had, yes, there are penalties, and yes, the MAP administration did suspend the project. However, we have now had several years where the project is back on track. We've had new appropriation last year. I think it was about 5.1 million, and it was looking at the latest deadline was the end of 2024. So we're now into a new year, January 2025. We seem to have a project management issue where things cannot come to completion. And let's not take this in isolation. What about the Clinton Phipps racetrack that has taken many years? The racetrack on St. Croix, Randall Dock James, is still unfinished. There are so many projects that just drag on. And what I think that the citizenry is not getting is a proper understanding and assessment of exactly what is going on. We're hearing contractor delays. We're hearing, slow progress. Why? Why is the progress so slow? And why do projects drag on for so many years?
Lucy, do you think Crucians have lost faith in the Polly Joseph Stadium project, and do you think it's ultimately still worth the investment?
Let me begin from the latter part of your question. It is worth the investment because it is a community-oriented facility. For me, it's much more troubling. As a matter of fact, the first appropriation by the legislature was introduced by me during the Young administration. This goes back to 2017, 2018. We're not renovating. We are constructing a new facility over a long period of time with these change orders. I do not agree with the subject matter that the MAP administration is being blamed for delaying. When the administration left, they had a soiree with the community. They had updates, and then when the new administration came in, the Bryan Roach, they decided not to follow that outline plan, and then there were changes to the plan, therefore changes to the cost of the project. I am with Ms. Simon's position. There's no real oversight over the contractor that has this job for more than a decade and can understand, at least in my mind, why we can't be able to complete a project after 10 years and still during that 10-year period, additional costs is being burdened by the government.
Donna, you've played a part in this as far as appropriations go as well. Given the history of delays, is it realistic for this project to be completed under the Bryan Roach administration and for it to ultimately become a part of the governor's legacy?
Well, I am one that think that it's important to think positive. And based on the fact that the government of the Virgin Islands and through the legislature, we've invested about $32 million. And at this point, I really believe that the Bryan Roach administration really needs to look at the project management of this particular project, look at the work that the contractor is doing, and make some tough decisions. I believe it's time to make tough decisions as it relates to this particular project. We cannot continue to have the conversation about the contractor have delays, we have these challenges. Look at the project, look at the contractor, look at the project management, make a tough decision, and move on. Absent of that, I don't see it happening.
Before we continue, Hugo, I do want to get your input on this Polly Joseph Stadium project.
Well, the project definitely is long overdue. I don't agree with the concept or the mindset that all projects seem to be having an issue. I disagree with the Clinton E. Phipps track because that is ahead of schedule by about 8 months, significantly ahead of schedule, and is nearing completion. Of course, the track on St. Croix is a whole different scenario that I believe is being addressed shortly. But I wouldn't say there's an overall issue of projects, but there's definitely one with Polly Joseph.
Now, let's shift now to a strong commitment the governor made in his 2022 State of the Territory address, reaffirmed in 2023, but notably skipped in 2024 after the promise apparently fell through. Let's take a look.
We are committing to paying down at least 15% or $26 million at least in retroactive wages in this current fiscal year. I am going further than that because I don't want you to believe it's an election ploy. I am also proposing that we commit to plan to pay the remaining balance of what is owed at annual installments of at least $25 million every single year until the full obligation is repaid. The government's current obligation for repayment of those retroactive wages, which go back 40 years, is still $135 million. Now, I made a promise last year that this administration will pay at least $25 million every year, and we have budgeted another $25 million for this year to be paid out before October 1st.
Of the $25 million that was appropriated for retroactive payments in fiscal year 2023 per Act 8770, OMB processed the release for the full $25 million. However, only $2.5 million has been paid to date.
Now, Donna, you know I'm going to go to you, Chair of the Finance Committee. The fiscal year 2025 budget included nothing for the governor's $25 million a year commitment for retroactive payments. And only a fraction of what was promised was paid in fiscal year 2023 and 2024, as was noted. Should the governor use this speech tonight to address a new, realistic plan to gain back the public trust as it pertains to the retroactive payments?
Absolutely. We did make that commitment. We passed in the FY 2023 budget the $25 million with a commitment from the executive branch that they will utilize the ARPA funding to backfill any challenges that we have had with the budget. That obviously did not occur. As we moved to 2024, we saw the same thing, and of course we could not budget likewise in 2025. So I am looking forward to hearing what the governor has to say as it relates to how he's going to pay the retro. But what I will add to this is critically important that the capital projects, the disaster-related projects, in fact, in the territory, get online. Those are the projects that will allow for us to see gross receipt taxes and to see income taxes, and hence the reason we'll be able to pay our the retro. So, it's a push and pull on this. We have to get our disaster-related projects online in order to see the funding to cover these expenses that we're talking about.
Now, Usi, the legislature appropriated funds for the governor's $25 million a year commitment to the retro payments, but the money was spent elsewhere, as former OMB Director Jennifer O'Neill noted. What tools do you think the legislature has to ensure these funds are used and distributed as promised?
Well, I was at a loss by the statements of the former OMB director that says that the money was in fact, released. And when you release funding, the impression is left that OMB has allotted the funding to the Department of Finance, and Finance will then begin to make the disbursements. And so it is troubling for me as a former legislator, and if I was in this current body, to really get a handle on how the authority as described by law in the executive and the legislative branches is being executed, because in this particular instance, I see this as a violation of the law that has been put together, and the act was in fact mentioned by the legislature. The governor signed that law into effect, and then violated and dismissed the law when they released the supposedly $25 million. And this is a long-standing issue. I was fortunate when this first retroactive wages were being paid. This goes back, the first set of money was taken from the Insurance Guarantee Fund in a piece of legislation introduced by Senator Dow, and we joined him and a number of colleagues to start paying back this retro. So we're talking about, this is not money owed to unionized employees from yesterday. Money is owed to unionized employees from yesteryears. And this is, I've been out of the legislature more than a decade. And so this is a long-standing problem that needs to be addressed.
And we do know that the state of the territory has begun. The coverage of it begins. We will go to the state of the territory when the governor does enter the chambers. But before that, Janika, as you reported in the Virgin Islands Consortium, retirees protested on October 1st after learning that no funds were allocated for those retro payments in fiscal year 2025 budget. What steps do you think the governor needs to outline, essentially, tonight to restore retirees' trust, regarding these retroactive wage payments, as, UC has stated, they've been waiting from yesteryear for?
Well, I think that restoring trust cannot happen based on rhetoric alone. We have heard promises and they have not been fulfilled. So whatever the governor says tonight has to be backed up by action. Yeah. The money needs to start going out to the people that are waiting to receive their funds, and that's just it.
Now, let's shift now to public safety, a pressing concern for many residents after the territory recorded 44 homicides last year. The governor is expected to address crime in tonight's speech, and last year he credited crime cameras and other technology with helping to solve cases and announced plans to expand those efforts. Here's what the governor said in his last State of the Territory address, followed by how things have unfolded since then.
The use of technology and camera system has played an integral role in over 30 cases in the Virgin Islands, leading to arrests and closing vehicle accident investigations. Contracts are in place to add additional cameras to our schools, our roadways, our recreational parks to protect our people. We have been having excellent results in terms of our crime. Today is June 17th. We have 2 homicides in St. Croix. The police commissioner credits a lot of the arrests that we have been made and the progress we've been making in crime to Monethos and that company. When you're dealing with the person who is in charge of the security of the territory and they're telling you this is the reason why we have been able to make arrests, find people, and to stop crime, you have to go with what works. As long as there was a procurement process that was followed and that the contract is in place fairly and squarely, I don't think we have any grounds to stop the contract.
The government canceled a contract with someone who openly admitted and has pled guilty to defrauding the government of the Virgin Islands. I think that it would have been imprudent for the government of the Virgin Islands to continue to proceed doing business with that entity. Prior to that, the governor had no knowledge of what that investigation entailed or what that person had done.
All right, now Donna, as we know, 3 of the former members of the governor's cabinet, former Virgin Islands Police Commissioner Ray Martinez, former OMB Director Jennifer O'Neill, former Sports, Parks and Recreation Commissioner Calvert White, have now since been indicted on fraud investigation related to David Whitaker's company, former VIPD contractor Monethos, involving the fraud and bribery charges as well too. And Monethos was responsible for that crime camera program. With these indictments in the spotlight, how should the governor address it tonight in the State of the Territory address?
Well, the camera system is important to the territory. It's important to us solving crime. So I really think that the Department of the Police Department should begin the process of putting that out to bid so we can continue our work here in the territory. I suspect that matter that's before the territory with these white-collar crimes is something that's going to go on for a long time. I don't know that we have the opportunity or the luxury to sit and wait until those issues are resolved. We need to move on with the work that's important to the people, and solving crime is one of a very, very important matter here in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Now, this question came up recently on Comes with the Territory, and I would like to get the panel's opinion tonight as well. Hugo, I'm going to start with you. Should we establish a government accountability office, to address some of these issues? Or would it be more effective, in your opinion, to strengthen the Inspector General's office to ensure that audits ultimately lead to meaningful change?
I don't know that strengthening of the audits is the way forward. I think that, well, first of all, I welcome the due process that's to take place with these individuals and see how it shakes out when it's all said and done. But I think we have to take a step back and look at what is taking place in the territory. We like to look at events and cast an opinion about what's transpiring and make it about a group of people. But I think it's a problem with humans in general. Many times we have issues that human beings get caught up with, and we put it on whatever group they're associated with at that time, as if that's where it stems from. But I think we have to dig deep and put some policies in place, ethics in place, maybe some mandatory training in that regards, just things that strengthen what is to transpire with how our fiduciary responsibility of public funds is taken as we move forward. But it's the highest responsibility given to someone, which is to be the steward of public funds, and it should be taken as serious as anything else.
Lucy, I want to get your input on this. Do you think that we need to strengthen the Inspector General's office, or do you think that there should be some sort of an accountability office?
Well, let me start with the latter part in regards to accountability. I think too often we forget that the three branches of government, and the legislative branch in particular, is the fact that the overseer of the execution of not only funding, of laws, and of services to the people of the Virgin Islands. I think that there has been a very limited enforcement of that, what I call the authority vested in members of the legislature in overseeing the activities of the executive branch of government. I understand the Inspector General office is something that happens after the fact, after money have been spent, after programs have been implemented in whatever form or fashion, and so that the ongoing oversight responsibility should be fully executed by members of the legislative branch of government. I'm not in support of them creating another entity and agency referred to as an Office of Accountability, when the entity that would create that by law has not been accountable for the responsibilities and duties to the people of the Virgin Islands.
Janika, we've heard from the fellow panelists. I want to get your input on this as well.
Well, I'm always thinking that I should, defer to the former legislators on the panel. But I think that I agree with Usi in that the legislature, in my opinion, has been a little bit laid back about some of the funny things, let's say, that are going on. For example, the taking of the $25 million for the retroactive pay that was appropriated for that purpose and spent on a different purpose. For example, we had the line of credit that was executed by or money that was shifted around before the legislature had actually gone ahead and appropriated funds. I think that these are major violations of the responsibilities and major oversteps of the authority of the executive. However, what we got from the legislature was, some stern language, and then nothing. So what if you have that vacuum and you don't have any enforcement, then the executive branch believes that they can do that, and they did. So like Usi said, maybe the legislature needs to examine their options when it comes to that. And I do agree with him that creating another office another layer of bureaucracy, granularizing responsibilities into a new office may not necessarily be what the territory needs. Strengthening the IG's office, I do not know whether that is something that the IG's office needs. Do they need more staff? Do they need more funding? All of these things need to be considered, but I do think that the legislature can, be a little more forceful in their oversight responsibilities.
So, Donna, I want to ask you, just recently leaving the legislature, being former chair of the Finance Committee as well too, do you think there should be steps? What steps need to be taken to kind of improve oversight, on these government contracts?
Well, the legislature enacted legislation, and it's now law, where there's a transparency website. And I believe all of us will agree that we cannot legislate morality, right? So it's also the responsibility of the individuals working in the respective departments and agencies. When they see something, they should say something. Most times, individuals know what's going on, but they're afraid to say. As far as the oversight responsibility is concerned, when it comes to the legislature, I really believe that it's important that we really take a deep look at the Office of the Inspector General and really provide the necessary funding for the positions. The challenge that we've had over the years is we've funded those positions, but the challenge is to really get the positions filled. One of the challenges that we have here in the territory, of course, is getting individuals to fill these jobs with the capacity to do the work. So we have to make a meaningful effort, not only on the legislative side, but we have to begin to grow and invest in our young people to take some of these jobs so we could get this type of work done. So there's a lot to contemplate around how do we address oversight. I know that we've started the work, but we have to really explore more as to how we can really, bottom line is we cannot buy and legislate morality. And we have to make people understand. I think also what's critical is as the governor does his or her work, I think with the cabinet members, you need to continue to remind them what you stand for as the governor of the Virgin Islands and what you're not going to accept, and continue to monitor. I believe that when individuals are being monitored, then they take a step back, and I'm a firm believer that what gets monitored gets done.
Now, Usi, one of the things that you mentioned that you want to hear this evening is on the health and hospitals. You want to hear what's going on with healthcare. Speak to me a bit more on what specifically you would like to hear the governor address.
Well, I'll focus particularly in the District of St. Croix, and I know there's some progress being made in the District of St. Thomas St. John with the Kimmerman Center. You also have the center over on St. John that also needs to be addressed. But I think the community is somewhat discouraged by the existing progress of what's happening over the Wang F. Louis Hospital. We know we are currently awaiting a renewed construction of a headquarters in regards to the services under the umbrella of the Department of Health. We've opened up a modular unit over at Wang F. Louis Hospital grounds. They were supposedly to begin construction of the new hospital, demolition and construction. All that has not come into place, and I think the individuals are somewhat questioning the longevity of the temporary facility referred to as a modular. And I think that is very, very important because the health of the people of the Virgin Islands, the people in St. Croix, by definition is a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being. And if we don't have the appropriate facilities to maintain a healthy community, then all the other problems will fall in line behind of that.
Mm-hmm. Donna, I want to ask, I know you're shaking your head. Do you have some input on what Uzi just stated?
No, I absolutely agree with him. I believe that we have to make our hospitals a priority. And, all of our projects need to be a priority, but we have to look at really our hospitals and our schools and make them a priority. I believe in particular the situation that has occurred with Wang Louis is going on since I've been a senator. It took forever for the modulars to be built. That created there was a lot of energy around that, and now we're at the stage of the hospital not being demolished and being able to move on. We have to set our priorities. Again, I said it earlier, what gets monitored gets done. And if we're not setting our priorities, our community needs to not only talk about things, but we need to begin to get to the action level. And that's the piece where there's this feeling where, community or the citizenry likes to complain, but they don't go out and try to make a difference. And I believe what's important is we have to rise up at this point and really show that we are interested in what's happening and we want to see it happen, and most definitely figure out what's really happening with these contractors that's responsible for these hospitals or the funding, what actually is happening. So I'm hoping that we will hear that tonight from the governor. What is the true challenge around particularly Juan Luis Hospital moving forward?
Hugo, one of the things that you mentioned you want to hear about, we're speaking a lot about infrastructure recovery. You spoke about education. Speak to me a bit more on what you're hoping to hear, because I know in the St. Thomas St. John district, when we're looking at the Charlotte Amalie High School as well too, we had those challenges where we had mold in some of those modular classrooms that some of the students have been in. So we're seeing some of those issues and challenges that pertains to the infrastructure that the students are currently in. What are you hoping to hear a little bit more on?
Some more information. I think that what we have is an information vacuum that's taking place. There's a lot of work that's taking place. I'm doing work related, so I know of a lot of work that's being done, executed, that is not getting to the public. And if it's not getting to the public and they don't know about it, it doesn't exist. So I think we have to get more information to the public. We have to have avenues of getting, and granted, I've been in a seat where you get to work and you're so focused on what you're doing, you don't take time to talk about what you're doing. But we have to. It is our obligation to tell the public what's taking place. So I'm looking forward to, in the address, getting some of the information to the public, because there's a lot of thought that there's nothing going on with the schools, where I know that there's a lot going on. So hopefully we can get that information out.
Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to your time as the former CEO of the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority.
Yes.
Now, we still have some energy challenges here in the territory, but if you could give a grade as to what you're seeing happening with WAPA now from then, what grade would you give it?
Well, now I'm impressed with what's taking place right now. I think the new director has started to move some of the projects forward. We're seeing things come online. We just saw the first solar farm come online on St. Croix, the 16 megawatt farm. The 20 megawatt farm is near to be online as well. We're seeing a significant amount of movement right now. And I imagine that we'll, so right now we would grade out high. I think in the past, it wouldn't get as high. I'll probably be the toughest grader on WAPA anyway, right? But there's some work that needs to take place, and there's some projects that have to come to fruition. But we talk about shortfalls and money, we talk about funds not being used or what it's allocated for, but we also spent $100 million in subsidizing WAPA to make sure that the rates didn't go up. And that money didn't come from, it didn't just come in by osmosis, it came from other obligated funds elsewhere to not let the rates for the utility go up. So there's a little tug of war for funds, and we have to really acknowledge what it was used for, and don't forget that did take place. $100 million of subsidized funds with nothing tied to it, no prepayment for bills, no future bills included, just straight subsidy to make sure the rates didn't go up to the ratepayer.
Janika, you mentioned what you would like to hear from the governor this evening. What other topics are you hoping that he'll drill down a bit more on?
I think that definitely the energy crisis and WAPA in general is something that's really important for the territory, especially, and I also think that I'm hoping that the governor will speak about the labor shortage, which it looks likely to become more acute with the president's policies. So I know that I think that it was the 2024 State of the Territory. It may have been the 2023 State of the Territory, where the governor, spoke about the need for people to come in and work. And now that we have this situation right now with the federal stance on that, how is the territory going to have the workers that it needs to do the recovery projects that Donna was speaking about, to get the infrastructure, built, and to get those gross receipt taxes and the revenue going. So it's a real chicken and egg situation, and I'm really interested in hearing how the governor addresses that.
Yeah, we're speaking about immigration. We're seeing what's happening across the country. Lucy, I'm going to get your input on that. Specifically on, the operations, on Janika's point as well, too, as far as the labor force, as it, we do see predominantly, we know immigrants are more than just laborers. They are human beings as well, too, but, they do make up a large part of our workforce. Let's speak to me a bit more about,
Well, I would like to start from the initial point that Janika mentioned, which is the absence of a real skilled labor force within the territory of the Virgin Islands. We have, for lack of a better term, been going backward and regressing in our development of our youths, whether through the educational system, the role the vocational education used to play within both districts, the role that the training center that is now owned by the government, that Hovenza has right off the highway there from Home Depot. And so that it is a factual statement that there's no way in a defined amount of time that we could get all these projects done without having imported labor. And that is frightening given the current position of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, in regards to his crackdown on individuals from various backgrounds, various countries, various environments, is that how can we as a territory now be able to secure, and it is needed. I smiled and laughed to myself, and I think Donna might also get this giggle out too, when the agency that is responsible for all the FEMA funding had created a master contractor to manage all or a large number of the contracts that we have to spend FEMA funds. How does that effectively get the job done without this master contractor also having to bring in a mass level of employees and workforce to achieve this goal?
Donna, let me get your input on this. What we're looking at right now on that labor force that's going to be needed here in the territory.
I have to agree with Usi. It's called a super PMO.
That's what it's called, a super PMO.
I'm still trying to understand how the super PMO will be effective because of that very issue. We've talked about the visa program, and that program has not come to fruition for us here in the Virgin Islands, and I really think that it's a missed opportunity for us in the territory. I believe that because we knew of our challenges in the Virgin Islands with our workforce, we really needed to push on that level, on a national level, to ensure that we were able to get that visa program moving so we could get the workforce here. So that is our Achilles heel as it relates to us moving our projects along. So there must be a plan. So I'm hoping to hear from the governor this evening as well. Yep. What is that plan? How do we make this happen? Because it briefs well, rather, to say that we have X billions of dollars in federal funds for disaster recovery. But the question is, how are we going to execute?
All right. Well, the crowd is on their feet, and the governor is beginning his entrance into the chambers of the Irby Otley Legislative Hall. We're going to go to that.
United States Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan Jr.
Okay, and we see the governor coming in, and he is doing his greetings to all of the members of the 36th legislature. He is being accompanied by Senator Kenneth Gittins as well. Donna, give me your input on what happens during this moment now.
The governor greets all of the senators, and the senators give him their blessings, and then he starts the show. The show starts, and that's what we're looking forward to seeing this evening.
What's typically the mood like? You know, you've done this a number of times. What's the mood in the chambers?
It's good vibes. It's good. It's usually good vibes, but I will tell you this: as I sat as a senator, and Usi may agree with me, I try my best not to have any emotions over what the governor is saying. I really take my time to look at and hear exactly what he's saying, and I'm one that I didn't do the applause and all that stuff unless he made specific reference to myself, if you will.
And we see a lot of the commissioners and the governor's cabinet there, but notably missing is Licensing and Consumer Affairs Commissioner H. Natalie Hodge, as she is tonight's designated survivor.
Governor Bryan, we welcome you to present the state of our territory.
Thank you, Senate President Milton Potter. Before we start, I just want to take one moment to acknowledge the great architect of the universe and my creator for the many blessings the Virgin Islands has had over the years. Some people think that blessings are always in a form of avoiding trouble, but in the Virgin Islands, we know that our blessing is also to be equipped with the resources, the persistence, and the faith in God to see us through. Father Anthony Abraham, Lieutenant Governor Tregenza A. Roach, Esquire, Senate President Milton E. Potter, and members of the 36th Legislature, Chief Justice Reese S. Hodge and the Justices of the Virgin Islands Supreme Court, Presiding Judge Deborah Watlington, and the judges of the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands, Delegate to Congress Stacey Plaskett, Chief Judge Robert Malloy, and judges of the District Court of the Virgin Islands, members of my cabinet and other agency heads, members of my staff, State Chair of the Democratic Party, Carolyn Burke, other invited guests, and my fellow Virgin Islanders, good night. Good night. With the election season behind us, I want to express my profound gratitude to every voter who participated in our democratic process. Your voice is the heartbeat of our democracy, and your engagement speaks to an enduring commitment to shaping the future of these islands. To Senate President Milton E. Potter, congratulations on your peers' vote of confidence to lead this distinguished body. To every member of the 36th Legislature, congratulations on earning the trust of the people. The next 2 years will pass swiftly, but they hold the potential for transformative progress if we act boldly and work collaboratively. A noteworthy acknowledgement goes to our first-time elected Democratic Senators, Clifford Joseph, Lorenzo Frederick, and Avery Lewis. Your elections reflects the people's trust in your leadership and dedication to public service. May you approach this calling with passion, purpose, and a steadfast commitment to those you serve. I would also like to recognize Senator Novell E. Francis Jr., whose leadership as president of the 35th Legislature was a testament to the power of unity and collaboration. Senator Francis, you reminded us that progress comes not from focusing on divisions, but from aligning our efforts toward the common good. Thank you, sir. To this new legislature, I urge you to follow that example. Lead with integrity, collaborate with purpose, and champion the causes that uplift our people. See, leadership is not merely about opposing, it's about delivering results that transform lives. When this body and our administration succeed, the Virgin Islands succeed. And when we fail, our people pay the price. Let us commit tonight to winning for them. I also extend my congratulations to President Trump and the newly elected leaders across our great nation. I trust that we can move forward, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans and Virgin Islanders. Together, united in our effort, we can chart a course defined by opportunity, progress, and a shared purpose for our future. As we look to that future, we must also honor the legacies of those who have shaped our past. We celebrate the life and contributions of former Senator Milton Bulfrett, a dedicated public servant and a friend. We also remember Brigadier General Liel Gerard Galabert, a pioneer of the Virgin Islands National Guard, whose leadership and patriotism were unmatched. See, this past year was a bit of an anomaly, as Mother Nature rained on us and prevented us from celebrating Veterans Day. So tonight, I would like to honor the Honorable Vern A. Hodge, retired First Lieutenant from the United States Army from St. Thomas. Wilfred Charles Stewart, Sr., retired Sergeant First Class from the United States Army from St. Croix. And Henry Augustus Powell, retired Supply Logistics Division Chief from the United States Navy from St. John. Mr. Powell and his lovely wife, Carol, are here with us tonight as my special guests. We must recognize the patriotism and sacrifice of our service members, those who extended their commitment to the broader ideals of freedom and security. The men and women of the National Guard exemplify what it means to serve with courage and selflessness. As they volunteer to support the nation's military forces, they stand as a testament to the proud, resilient, and deeply patriotic spirit of the Virgin Islands. Additionally, I commend the 35th Legislature for passing 2 landmark laws honoring the sacrifices of our first responders. Act 8941 renames the Tango Company Fire Station in Estate Fortuna to honor the extraordinary service and enduring legacy of my good friend, the late Darrell Mousy George, former director of the Virgin Islands Fire and Emergency Medical Services. His life work reminds us the profound impact that leadership and devotion can have on a community. Act 8939 memorializes the ultimate sacrifice of our law enforcement officers who gave their lives in the line of duty. This act is more than a tribute. It is a powerful call to honor and support those who risk everything to keep us safe. As we reflect on our shared journey, we are reminded that leadership is not just about navigating the present, but also about laying the foundation for a better future. These moments of acknowledgements, elections won, lives honored, and sacrifices remembered are not merely ceremonial. They are milestones that anchor us to the values that we hold dear and the vision that propels us forward. These are indeed exciting and demanding times, and I often find myself returning to the foundation we built together 7 years ago. It was a platform grounded in a simple yet profound mission to provide the best quality of life we can for the residents and guests of these Virgin Islands. On its surface, this goal may appear straightforward, but it is layered with the complexities and challenges inherent in governing a community as vibrant and diverse as ours. The simple truth is that we have made progress, tremendous strides, in the face of new and daunting challenges. But despite these hurdles, we have managed to address the pressing issues that the people demanded we confront. At the time, we were grappling with the aftermath of two Cat 5 hurricanes, record high unemployment, face a public pension system failing, a deteriorating infrastructure, and staggering unpaid obligations to vendors and our people. From the start, our priorities were clear: stabilize the government's finances, fulfill its overdue commitments, and begin the ongoing work of restoring trust. Trust among our people, our federal partners, and our investors. Our second priority was to leverage that trust to attract federal and private investment dollars. And our third priority was to reinvest all of those funds in our people. It's a simple formula for success, but the journey has been anything but simple. Along the way, we faced unprecedented obstacles: the global pandemic, rising inflation, climate change, and supply chain disruptions. All tested our resolve at every turn. Yet through it all, we together have remained steadfast in our commitment to you. Has the road been easy? No. Have our plans always unfolded as intended? Absolutely not. Yet time and again, we have come together, found solutions, and forged the path forward, guided by our shared vision for a stronger, more equitable Virgin Islands. I always say, you have to surf the wave that comes, not the one you want. Today, we stand at a pivotal juncture, not merely enduring adversity, but rising above it. This moment is defined by progress, hard fought and hard won. Progress that reflects our collective resolve to tackle the toughest issues and create meaningful change. We stabilized the government Virgin Islands' failing pension system, paid hundreds of millions in overdue obligations, and addressed the millions in arrears to the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority, demonstrating our commitment to fiscal responsibility and restoring trust in the government. These achievements, they're more than just milestones. They are proof of what is possible when we approach adversity with determination, focus, and an unrelenting belief in the potential of the people of this Virgin Islands. But let us be clear, progress is neither swift nor without its trials. It tests our patience, it challenges our resolve, and it often demands that we leave behind the familiar to embrace the promise of something greater. Change, by its very nature, brings discomfort. It asks us to adapt, to grow, and reach beyond what we thought possible. Through this progress, however, we have seen that as one challenge is resolved, another emerges to take its place. The robust economy we see today, bolstered by recovery funds, pandemic-related social subsidies, and an unprecedented waves of development projects, has introduced new pressures. The inflation in rent, housing, and food, the costs are undeniable, not just here in the Virgin Islands, but across the nation. These pressures are real, and they demand thoughtful, forward-looking solutions. Our work is far from complete. But tonight, let us reflect on how far we have come, the challenges we face, and the progress we have made are a testament to the strength of our people, the power of collaboration, and the transformative impact of leadership committed to action. Together, we are building a Virgin Islands that not only meets the needs of today, but continues to strengthen the foundation for a brighter and more prosperous tomorrow. Tonight I stand before you with pride and resolve to declare that the state of our territory is progressing in the throes of great change. While many of the fruits are still on the horizon, this transformation and our progress is undeniable, and its impact is being felt by all. And just as in your family and my family, we must adapt to the arrival of all this change, reshaping priorities, adjusting finances, and embracing new responsibilities. Our government and territory are undergoing their own profound evolution. Our journey forward rests on three unshakable pillars: our people, our economy, and the infrastructure that sustains them. These pillars represent the heart of our progress and the foundation of our future. Tonight, I will guide you along this path, celebrating the strides we have made, confronting the challenges we face, and illuminating the opportunities that lie before us. As we reflect on our progress, one area stands out as a shining example of growth and opportunity. Our economy, driven by the strength of our tourism industry, is on fire. In fiscal year 2024, we welcome 2.6 million visitors, a remarkable 10% increase from the previous year, setting records in December that are historic in terms of arrivals in 1 month. This achievement is no accident. It is a result of deliberate efforts to improve our infrastructure, foster partnerships, and elevate the Virgin Islands as a premier destination. We have not only recovered from the past challenges, but have surpassed pre-pandemic visitor levels by 22% and increased air arrivals by an astounding 44% compared to 2019. The economic impact of this growth is extraordinary. The shared economy contributed $369 million. Traditional accommodations added another $462 million, and cruise tourism generated $258 million, $73 million more than last year. With an average visitor spend of $166 per day, we are the second highest in the Caribbean. The Virgin Islands has cemented its place as a top-tier destination. Tourism in the Virgin Islands is about the stories we create, the memories we etch into the hearts of visitors, and the immense pride we feel in sharing the rich culture and breathtaking beauty of our home with the world. These accolades bolster our reputation and reaffirm that we as Virgin Islands already know our islands are treasures that continue to captivate and inspire our residents and our visitors. But we are not content to stand on our laurels. Last summer, we hosted our inaugural Tourism Summit. This event provided a platform to examine our strengths, identify areas for growth, and chart a path forward that embraces innovation and emerging trends. Since then, imitation being the best form of flattery, our neighbors in the British Virgin Islands have introduced their own tourism summit, inspired by the impact of this leadership. This reflects on the Virgin Islands as a beacon of progress and inspiration in the region. Our partnership with Royal Caribbean is reshaping the future of cruise tourism in our territory. A few years ago, St. Croix welcomed fewer than 60,000 cruise passengers annually, underscoring the untapped potential of the beautiful island. Today's projections for fiscal 2025 show an astonishing increase to 275,000 passengers, demonstrating the power of strategic vision and decisive action. To ensure continued momentum, we are making transformative investments in our infrastructure. The first phase of the DLA Gregory Transportation Center opened in April 2024, and the second phase, which will open in 2025, Sky City VI Airports, our 3P partnership company, is now preparing for the renovations at Cyril E. King on St. Thomas and the Henry E. Rosen on St. Croix. These projects feature expanded terminals, advanced baggage systems, and jet bridges, enhancing the travel experience for visitors and residents alike. Our seaports are also seeing major upgrades. Dredging in Charlotte Amalia will accommodate the larger cruise ships in the industry's future. That is already out to bid, and it will be done this year. On St. Croix, the Annie Abramson Marine Facility and tender dock improvements are expanding our visitor experience. These investments ensure our ports remain gateways to growth and opportunity. We are revitalizing our downtowns, making them more vibrant and welcoming for residents and visitors. The Veterans Drive Improvement Project and Downtown Revitalization grants will bring new life to our towns. Partnerships with organizations like the Historic Area Revitalization Project, or HARP, are transforming and re-giving new birth to International Plaza and Royal Dane Mall, turning them into hubs for businesses, culture, and leisure, creating spaces that reflect the beauty and potential of our downtown spaces. At the same time, investments are enhancing our tourism offering. The reopening of the Frenchman's Reef and the Bowie House Resort has reestablished our territory as a destination for conferences, and we see many this year. This was made possible through an $84 million bond offering by the PFA to finance this improvement. The soon-to-open Hampton Inn at West Indian Company Limited will add 120 much-needed hotel rooms, the first new hotel construction in the territory in 45 years. The Eco Resort at Botany Bay in St. Thomas is set to open later this year, promises to elevate our hospitality sector even further. These developments result from astute policies like the Hotel Development Act, which laid this groundwork for success. But these initiatives are more than about just boosting tourism. They are about creating jobs and building vibrant communities and ensuring that the economy works for everyone. The Virgin Islands is thriving, not just as a destination, but as a place of opportunity and promise. While our record-breaking tourism numbers showcase incredible achievements, our progress runs much deeper than visitor arrivals. Today, the Virgin Islands is setting new benchmark for success, particularly in our labor market. Unemployment has reached historic lows, remaining below 4% for unprecedented 14 consecutive months and dropping to a record-breaking 2.9%, the lowest in the history of the Virgin Islands. This is not just an achievement for this administration. It's a testament to the power of bold, sound economic policies and what can be accomplished when we form strategic partnerships with the private sector. Yet, we recognize that progress brings its challenges. Our job postings continue to outpace the applicants, highlighting the critical need to align opportunity with workforce and preparation. Workforce development has been and will continue to be one of the administration's core priorities because we know that empowering Virgin Islanders to build a brighter future starts with education, training, and skill building. In September 2025, we will open the Virgin Islands Technical College, a game changer. This new institution is designed to fill the gap in high-demand fields and address the workforce shortages in construction and project management, and provide residents with access to higher-paying careers. This academy will give our high school students the opportunity to graduate with a 2-year college degree and other certification while they are in high school. At the same time, we remain deeply committed to the University of the Virgin Islands with our free tuition program that has already provided $4.7 million in scholarships to over 2,000 students. This initiative, thanks to this legislature, is now extended to part-time students as well and is breaking down financial barriers and unlocking opportunities for all. These investments in education will reshape lives and create generational change by eliminating the weight of student debt, breaking cycles of financial instability, and building a community where prosperity is now within the reach of every Virgin Islander. This is the heart of our workforce development strategy, a strategy focused on transforming individual lives and strengthening the economic fabric of our territory strategy. A strategy focused on managing today's economy while also planting the seeds for tomorrow. Speaking of seeds, as we continue to improve the lives of our hardworking families across the territory, I am proud to share that progress is being made in implementing the Virgin Islands Cannabis Use Act. In 2024, the Cannabis Advisory Board approved rules and regulations to guide the cannabis industry, and we now have a staffed office with the enforcement unit set to be active next month, February. This dedicated team and the board are working tirelessly to ensure the cannabis market is both safe and thriving. Earlier this year, we took significant steps towards reparative justice for individuals convicted of simple possession of marijuana. In September, the Governor's Auto Expungement Task Force, in partnership with the Department of Justice, submitted the first round of expungement applications, and we've already seen some granted. If you believe you qualify for expungement of your criminal record due to marijuana, we encourage you to submit your petition to the Superior Court. Additionally, we have made it easier for medical practitioners, patients, and sacramental users to register online with the Office of Cannabis Regulation. As a result, residents who use cannabis for medical purposes are now legally registered and growing their own cannabis at home for their use. This quarter, we will open applications for cannabis cultivation licenses, followed by business licenses for dispensaries. Manufacturers and other sectors within this growing industry will follow suit. We are building a regulated market that ensures a safe and accessible cannabis industry. But as we celebrate the flourish and vitality of tourism and its economy and the invaluable support from federally funded projects, we must also recognize the urgent need to diversify our economic landscape. That is why I was pleased to work with Senator Novell Francis Jr. on the South Shore Trade Zone legislation. In a groundbreaking initiative, the EDA commissioned a comprehensive shipyard feasibility study aimed at seizing a substantial share of the Caribbean's boating repair industry. Establishing a local shipyard will empower the U.S. Virgin Islands to compete effectively in a market that has long been dominated by the British Virgin Islands and by Puerto Rico. This will open the doors for new growth and innovation. The latest step in our plan for the South Shore Trade Zone was to ensure that the tenants were not affected by the challenges to reliable power. Although the trade zone legislation allows tenants to produce and sell power within the zone, allowing the Water and Power Authority to compete unregulated within the zone would jumpstart power production. It would guarantee us competitive electrical rates for commercial, and it would lower the collective energy price for all because WAPA has more clients. Our administration is deeply committed to laying the groundwork for a transformative era in energy production. We have forged strong alliances with the owners of Port Hamilton Refining and Transportation, federal agencies, and key stakeholders, all with a shared vision of evolving this vital facility into something far more than just a refinery. My support is not just for the safe restart of the refinery, but for it to become a model for global energy, embracing advanced technologies, environmental stewardship, and cutting-edge practices that will redefine how energies operate in the 21st century. The projected impact of Port Hamilton is extraordinary. Once operational, the facility will potentially generate over $400 million annually, with $45 million direct to this government. Equally important, it will create 400 well-paying jobs, further boosting the economy of St. Croix and supporting countless families and local businesses. Alongside other projects in development in the trade zone, this project will anchor the Virgin Islands as a hub for innovation, prosperity, and opportunity. As governor, I have never shied away from confronting the challenges that have plagued our community for decades. As I said earlier, time and again, just as we take strides forward on one pressing issue, another emerges to test our resolve. Down WAPA, up waste management. Today, we face a crisis with the Waste Management Authority that demands both urgency and unity. Our community is grappling with aging and failing wastewater infrastructure and literally mounting issues of solid garbage waste. I acknowledge and commend the Waste Management Authority for the progress they had made in securing coastal zone permits and approvals as they planned convenience centers for Cotton Valley, Concordia, Monbijou in St. Croix, and Red Hook, Smith Bay, and Bournefield in St. Thomas. But we must do more. The Waste Management has been successful in securing $3 billion from FEMA, which will replace the entire sewer system in the Virgin Islands, along with address our issues at the dump. Along with the federal funding that we have now for immediate wastewater pump station replacements, we have a path forward. Nevertheless, the lead time for one of these pumps stretches from 12 weeks to 6 months. So we have to do something about the deterioration of the stormwater that is draining into our sewage system and breaking down our equipment time and time again. It has wreaked havoc in our community, resulting in an untenable situation. The sewer water in our towns and streets is a stark reminder of what is at stake. This is not just an infrastructure problem, but a public health, environmental, and economic crisis. The good news is that the funding exists. And while the lead time on the parts are long, we are going to get it fixed. Adding to this latest crisis is a fundamental and systemic issue. Waste management has never been adequately funded nor empowered to charge the fees necessary to sustain its operations. Consider this. Private haulers charge commercial and private entities for their services. Yet we expect the Waste Management Authority to maintain operations pay its vendors, and serve the community without the same ability? How can we reasonably expect them to succeed without the necessary resources? We owe it to our people to act decisively and with courage. The time for rhetoric has passed. We must now deliver solutions. Trash must be collected, wastewater must flow safely, and vendors must be paid. So, senators, let us work together with the Public Services Commission to bring a permanent resolution to this issue. This steady growth we are experiencing is supported by construction in government, residential, and the private sector. The infrastructure forms a foundation upon which we are building the future of the Virgin Islands. When our administration took offices, we inherited a failing infrastructure. The passage of time, coupled with the impact of 30 years of natural disaster, has led to significant deterioration. The devastation of our homes, businesses, and public infrastructure, our recreational spaces. It's caused the displacement of our population, the closure of businesses and the interruptions of our government functions, and most importantly, increased anxiety among our residents. And while federal funding has provided some relief, the simultaneous failure of systems across all three islands creates ongoing emergencies. This past year has been both exciting and productive, but trust me, the inconveniences we are experiencing are also proof of our progress. So when you see orange cones, block roads, and barricades, it's a sign that improvements are on the way. We are focused on building a prosperous, sustainable future for the Virgin Islands, not merely restoring the past. This unprecedented progress, though difficult, is essential for a stronger, more resilient Virgin Islands. These are the throes of change and improvement. When our administration took office in 2019, the territory anticipated receiving $8 billion. Y'all remember that in the campaign? $8 billion. During last year's address, we announced that we were expecting more than $15 billion. We are proud to share that we have once again surpassed the mark. I want to say this slowly. All federal emergency management administration public assistance projects have been obligated. All. And as of January 2025, $22.5 billion have been pledged to restore our Virgin Islands. Our efforts to maintain the recovery gained a much appreciated boost last year. I think this was one of the most tremendous things to happen last year. The Biden-Harris administration, after they said it couldn't be done, granted a reduction in the local match from 10% to as low as 2% for our projects. Projects that will rebuild schools and hospitals and facilities. Without this vehicle, our recovery would not be possible. It would require the territory to find $2 billion in cash to spend the $20 million available in FEMA funds. Ladies and gentlemen, this was no easy feat, and it was made possible by our team and our administration, our lobbyists in Washington, our team in DC, urging 2 U.S. presidents and several cabinet members for relief. Last year, I announced that the Office of Disaster Recovery is focused on initiating the larger, more complex projects under the Rebuild USVI initiative. Never before has there been a time in our territory's history where we had to manage multiple projects of this magnitude. There's no playbook. We had to meet the unique challenge and expand our capacity. Tonight, we can announce that we kept our promise to establish the Super Project Management Office to streamline the execution of projects. We released 4 bundles of solicitation for projects worth $4 billion and successfully secured obligations for all fixed cost projects by the September 30th, 2024 deadline. Before this started, we already had $1 billion in projects on the go. But now the Super PMO is executing a contract for the first bundle of St. Thomas School facilities, which include Yvonne E.M. Bowski Elementary, Emmanuel Benjamin Oliver Elementary, Ivana Idora Ken High School, Janie Tewitt Elementary School, Lockhart Elementary School, and St. Thomas Administrative Center. Bid evaluation for the St. John bundle, which is comprised of the first ever public pre-K through 12 school on the island, the Morris F. DeCastro Clinic, as well as the Myra Keating Smith Community Health Center is underway. This is in addition to the ongoing design-build contracts already in place for Charlotte Amalie High School, Arthur Richards, and Bertha C. Bushulta Elementary Schools. By the end of 2025, this administration will have over 10 schools under construction contracts. These state-of-the-art facilities will not only enhance academic environments, but will serve as symbol of our commitment to the future. Arthur Richards, our first new school construction, is over 50% complete. We expect students to be in class August of 2026. The bundle for horizontal projects, which encompasses all the power lines, water lines, and wastewater and grounding system, along with the road repair and damage improvements for the north side of St. Croix, is in the bid evaluation stage. Healthcare projects on St. Croix are moving forward. The demolition of Charles Howard Memorial Complex has been completed, and the new Donna M. Christensen Department of Health building in Richmond is scheduled to begin construction this year. The Governor Juan F. Louis Hospital is scheduled for demolition by the end of 2025, and Roy Lester Snyder is out to bid this first quarter of 2025. We have made remarkable progress, and we've made it also in modernizing our roadways and addressing challenges that have persisted for years. Segments of Queen Mary Highway and Northside Road have been newly paved. Work continues on a segment of Melvin Evans Highway between Good Hope and Williams Delight, where long-awaited street lights are finally being installed, improving safety and reliability for our drivers. The Clifton Hill Connector project is nearing completion and will be ready by summer 2025. To the residents of Hannah's Rest, your roads will be repaved once we finish the Wappa water lines and that project that we're working there. In Christian State Town, nearly every major road has been paved, making it easier for residents and businesses to connect and thrive. Looking ahead, we have finally issued a notice to proceed reconstructing the Ethel McIntosh Memorial Drive. Mahogany Road, you guys could stop emailing me now. Next month, we will break ground on this long overdue project alongside rehabilitation projects for Strand, King, and Queen Streets in Frederiksted. In St. Thomas, St. John, the significant road improvements have brought relief and renewed convenience to many communities. Key routes such as those in Botany Bay, Estate Fortuna, and Caprita Point, and the First Avenue drainage project designed to alleviate flooding and protect homes and businesses is progressing smoothly and set to be completed this year. This project is running so smoothly you don't even hear any complaints in the paper. We're now paving portions, if you didn't came in here tonight, of Veterans Drive and rehabilitating the entire Fort Christian parking lot to include water and electrical infrastructure in time for carnival activities. On St. John, work continues on Centerline, Fish Fry, and the Johnny Horn Trail, which we have in the design phase, and bridges. And I didn't even mention the East Airport and the West Airport Road. Bridge projects have been critical in St. Croix as we address aging infrastructure that has gone decades without significant attention. I am proud to report that the Altona Lagoon and Queen Mary Highway bridges on St. Croix are now complete and open to the public. The bridge at East Airport Road will open within the next 30 days, and construction on Midland Road and bridge repairs to Route 669 near the Rudy Schuldebrand Agricultural Grounds in St. Croix are well underway, with both being expected to be completed before June. In November 2024, the 35th legislature approved a $156 million Garvey bond issuance proposed by this administration. A record. We went from thought to approval in less than 60 days. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the members of the 35th who supported this visionary initiative, which represents a generational investment in our transportation infrastructure. This bond issuance will allow for $48 million investment to fund the completion of Phase 2 of the Veterans Drive project, $28 million dedicated to repaving major roadways in St. Croix, including the La Valley Road. I hear you down there in La Valley. And $20 million for the design and fabrication and delivery of the long-awaited, the St. Croix-St. Thomas passenger vehicle ferry. These projects will create jobs. This is in addition to the $22 billion I just talked about. These are other projects. These projects will create jobs, stimulate economic growth, and strengthen connections across our districts. But our transportation's improvements also extend to our blue economy, further enhancing connectivity and access. The spirit of 1733, a new 300-passenger ferry. It's another one. Will soon connect St. John and St. Thomas. Designed to meet the unique condition of our waters, the vessel is in its final stages of fabrication. It was named based on input from our community. The spirit of 733 is a welcome addition to our transportation system. We had so many boats come this year, we can't even keep up with the boat christenings. We added another 2 patrol boats for DPNR and 2 more for the Virgin Islands Police Department and 1 fireboat for one boat for the fire service, bolstering our marine enforcement and efforts. But our commitment to our community extends further as cemetery improvements are also underway. Thanks to Lieutenant Governor Roach's persistence, construction of a new wall. The Lieutenant Governor mean he was going to get this done. A new wall around Western Cemetery number 3 on St. Thomas has begun. Additionally, new columbarium and mausoleums at Eastern Cemetery provide much needed capacity and ensure dignity for our people. In St. Croix, we have finally added a new veterans section in the Kings Hill Cemetery. We have completed building the mausoleums and crypts for our veterans. These efforts reflect that our belief that every resident deserves respect in life as well as in death, underscoring our dedication to serving the needs of this community. Finally, progress continues with our street addressing initiative. It is now complete on St. John, and illuminated highway signs are being installed territory-wide, enhancing safety and accessibility for residents and visitors alike. But even though these are positive developments and really impressive numbers, the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands continue to face considerable challenges. Like the rest of the nation's Virgin Islands household have really felt the burden of unprecedented inflation. I often listen to the news and listen to mainland Americans complain about the prices of food. I just laugh to myself. They have no idea what the people of the Virgin Islands go through. We have seen inflation of up to 14% in a single year. And although it seems to be leveling off a little bit, it doesn't seem to be going down. We remain hopeful that our national leaders can assist in lowering our collective cost of living. But as an administration, we have faced this problem head on and continue to seek ways to ease the burden on households. Most notable is our effort to keep the energy bills from increasing. We have faced criticism and public browbeating on this issue. We have spent over $100 million in federal and local funds to assure that we keep local power rates the same. The Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority has been a point of frustration for as long as anyone can remember. On April 22, 2024, I declared a state of energy emergency. This declaration was not made lightly. As governor, I knew I had to act swiftly to mitigate the potential of a staggering rate increase by the Water and Power Authority, should it become insolvent and have to go to a receiver. Since the declaration, we have remained current on our central government obligations, as well as paying the debts owed to WAPA by both hospitals and the Waste Management Authority. This past year, we successfully negotiated and closed the deal on the 2 propane facilities, eliminating a $140 million debt and adding a $180 million asset to the authority's balance sheet. This move ensured that we could continue using propane, cheaper and cleaner than diesel oil. I want to thank the team at the PFA, our Washington Council and team, Squire Patton Boggs, Winston and Strawn, HUD, the Housing Finance Authority, Disaster Recovery, and VTOL for their invaluable contributions. It was a 5-year work in progress. A major step forward was the introduction of new leadership at WAPA. Many doubted my decision to offer my chief of staff to lead the authority. As often with the critics, they tend to view every hire through a political lens rather than a professional one. This was not a job he initially sought. It was an opportunity I strongly urged him to take at the expense of my administration. I knew his expertise and leadership would benefit WAPA, its employees, and the people of the Virgin Islands. Earlier this month, we celebrated the long-awaited unveiling of the Wärtsilä generators for St. Thomas and St. John. The project added 36 megawatts of power to the grid, along with 9 megawatts of battery power. After an almost 15-year effort, we now have smaller, more efficient generators running online at the Randolph-Harley Power Plant. It has been a long and challenging and a graying road, but we are finally turning the corner now and transforming WAPA into a renewable company. This past December, we cut the ribbon on 16 megawatts of pure solar power and battery backup in St. Croix. This solar power is already in use, powering homes and businesses as we speak. I know it's dark, but the battery them on. In addition, we will be cutting the ribbon in May for another 20 megawatts in Hoggensburg, Frederiksted, bringing the total solar power generation in St. Croix to 41 megawatts, matching the daily peak usage required on the island. They said it couldn't be done, but together we made it happen. If that wasn't impressive enough, WAPA is purchasing this power between 8 and 11 cents per kilowatt hour compared to 21 cents it costs to generate with fossil fuels. We're not going to talk about lowering the carbon footprint, because that's huge as well. We want to thank Christian Loranja, who is in here tonight, and VI Electric for not only building these solar fields, they not only build them, but then they turn them over to a nonprofit organization run by Virgin Islanders for perpetuity. Christian, stand up, man, stand up, man. I also want to thank the Public Service Commission, the PSC, my senior staff, and our team at WAPA for making this all possible. So while the prices of milk, chicken, rent, eggs, gas, interest rates have risen. Your WAPA rates have remained the same. In fact, the cost per kilowatt hour is lower now than when we took office 6 years ago. The investments we are making and the hard work we're doing, they're paying off. But just as I have ensured no price increase under my administration, we will not rest until we can pass these accomplishments in the form of reduced rates to the consumer. That's the point. Keep it on, keep it cheap. But we can't rush it. WAPA still has to resolve the financial hole it dug for itself over the many decades. Our neighbors right here in Puerto Rico, they welcome 2025 in darkness. Wake up, no power. So we have to remain vigilant and in our goal to fix WAPA together, to prevent the authority from relapsing into its previous state of disarray. I see a future where WAPA is interconnected with the refinery, with some power generation on the south shore of St. Croix. And thanks to recent FEMA obligation of $661 million for the replacement of the power plant in St. Croix and an additional $206 for new efficient generation in St. Thomas, I am committed to improving the grid infrastructure to the point where it's on and cheap. Our efforts not only address current challenges, but also pave the way for affordable and renewable energy. And while we seek to put WAPA on financial footing, our real goal is to create energy independence for as many households as we can. Last year, we closed on the first 1% solar loans being administered by the Economic Development Authority and the Virgin Islands Energy Office. These loans allow residents to install solar systems and finance them through their WAPA bill. We have also made sizable investments in transforming the government fleet from fuel-driven automobiles to hybrid and electric vehicles. In order to make EV purchases more attractive, we have also installed 8 free charging stations, with 26 more scheduled by the summer of 2025. Likewise, homeowners are now taking advantage of low-cost energy loans to install batteries and solar systems to their homes. I would like to remind people as they're struggling that there's still rent and mortgage assistance available through the COVID relief. But through the efforts of this administration, we have secured $150 million in grants that will be used to subsidize batteries for your home, solar systems for your businesses, erecting power charging stations for cars, and replacing them old, faulty appliances that WAPA mess up. Our government is leading the charge in this energy revolution. We strive to create efficiency at every turn. And while many complain about the cost of government, we have fewer employees now than we had 20 years ago, with 10 times the work. Salaries and fringe are the greatest increase in the budget. Let me say it again. Salaries and fringe are the greatest increase in the budget, which have risen over 25% since we took office. Not only, listen again, not only have we increased salaries, but we have actually paid them. Isn't that novel? We have honored every single contract that I have signed over the last 6 years, complete with retroactive pay if applicable, which includes the ones I inherited when I first took office. Today, the starting salary for a teacher is over $50,000, and the average salary for teachers is $61,000 in the Virgin Islands. Our nurses in our hospital are starting at $70,000. We have absorbed the rising cost of health insurance over the last 5 years rather than pass it on to the employees. This will be the first fiscal year since being elected that increased insurance costs will actually be shared. However, the government has assumed the greatest part of that burden as well. We continue to keep pace and pay out overdue tax refunds, and we are catching up. In the last 4 months alone, we've paid $42 million in returns to filers. bringing refunds paid to individuals who have filed up to April 25th, 2023. Since taking office, our administration has paid over $396 million in income tax refunds. This February, for the first time, Virgin Islanders will be able to file their income tax returns online. Another major accomplishment. For us, giving people back their money timely is a priority. We have paid back the 8%, raised salaries, absorbed healthcare costs, paid $42 million in retro, and committed $3 billion in public funds to ensuring the solvency of the government employees' retirement system. We have sacrificed and paid out $40 million annually in general fund contribution to ensure that our retirees continue to collect. A system, remember, a system that would have been completely out of cash today. We must recognize that this $3 billion and all this money that we pledged, that money would have paved roads and repaired schools and fixed waste management issues and provided more funds to deal with our healthcare system. We diverted the money to ensure that our seniors and our retirees and our future retirees would keep getting their checks monthly. But people, please remember, 70% of our taxpayers don't work for the government and don't get the benefit of that $3 billion initially. So yes, I understand the retro pay is owed, and I know it is needed, and we want to pay it. This is a 40-year-old debt that we still owe over $120 million on. But we have to spread the wealth around and ensure that all our residents benefit from our tax roll, not just government employees. And yes, I'll take the blame. I made the promise that we would pay at least $25 million a year in retro. But between keeping the lights on and tackling inflation, we simply cannot afford to pay it using the general fund. But senators, we can pay it from the proceeds from the lawsuits we settled. Instead of building yet another gymnasium in Estate Nazareth, right next to the gymnasium in Ivana Doroken High School, we could take that $20 million and pay our retirees today. That is not an obligation. That's $20 million in cash in the bank right now. As I've said many times before, we have $22 billion of projects. We don't need any more projects. Let us use this money to address our inflation woes and our obligation to our retirees and forgo this gymnasium. It is not all, but it is a step in the right directions. Let's show the people of the Virgin Islands that we can work together on this. Send me the bill, and I will pay the retro immediately. As we focus on addressing immediate needs like inflation and supporting our retirees, we must also consider how we can further help our communities. One area that requires our attention is ensuring families have access to nutrition and food they need. People are struggling to put food on the table every day, and we are doing everything we can to address this by increasing food pantries and providing assistance whenever possible. I would like to remind you of all the assistance we're given. We continue to pour money into our community. To further support our local families, the Virgin Islands Department of Human Services, they chose to raise the income limit for SNAP, or food stamps as we call it. So it went from 130% of the poverty limit to 175% of the poverty limit. This increase allowed more families to receive benefits, expanding access to those who need it most. We went from receiving $85 million a year in food stamp in COVID to $55 million. That's the impact on families that we are feeling now. Parallel to what Human Services is doing with SNAP, the efforts at licensing and consumer also share in this effort. The department is sharing the data to empower consumers to make the best choices. the market basket, and the fuel surveys are essential tools for price transparency and consumer protection. Most of all, these surveys track the cost of essential goods in the territory, empowering our residents to find the best deals and forcing these suppliers to compete for customers with the best price. Now, at the close of this fiscal year, 2024, Human Services distributed more than $21 million in child care stabilization grants and $7 million in quality improvement mini grants. The stabilization grants provided crucial financial support to child care providers, helping them cover operational costs like wages, utilities, rent, and insurance. And the mini grants allow providers to fund standby generator purchases and give professional development opportunities with health and safety enhancements and playground equipment. Supporting these child care providers is a vital investment because we are subsidizing their operations to lower their costs, allowing them to pass those savings on to families. By investing in child care industry, we are helping families thrive and easing financial pressure on households. Last year, we began construction on 6 Head Start facilities. The Cruz Bay Head Start is completed. And by September 2025, all the remaining centers will be ready to welcome our kids into the territory. I would also like to congratulate Lutheran Social Services for opening of their state-of-the-art early Head Start facility in Estate Concordia East. Department of Human Services is not only addressing poverty through SNAP benefits and investment in child care and Head Start, but also by revitalizing its buildings and it's improving its programs. We are set to invest $200 million in long-term care centers for St. Croix and St. Thomas. That's a replacement of Herbert Grigg and Lucinda Miller and Queen Louise. $126 million to restore New Hansen, and we've already put in about 2.5 and upgrading the St. John Multipurpose Center. We're continuing to fight inflation, especially in the housing market, where it's becoming hard just to find insurance, much less buy or build a house. We've allocated $25 million in grants through the VI Slice program and increased the grant cap for the Envision program to $400,000 per home. I'm happy to report that both programs are making progress in helping Virgin Islanders secure homes. From the inception of Slice, 39 applicants have been approved, totaling $3.4 million in financing. This past year, the program issued 16 grants, totaling over $1.4 million to 16 homeowners. These are not loans. These are grants to first-time home buyers, as high as $90,000. This is unmatched in the country. There's no program that is similar to this. And this helps Virgin Islanders to buy, build, renovate homes. Unlike many of the federal programs, it allows them to purchase, construct, and you can also have a rental unit in the home, creating a source of income for our residents. The Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority has worked tirelessly to help the residents achieve the dream of home ownership. The program continues to be an excellent tool for first-time home ownership in the Virgin Islands. The Envision program, the much disputed and feared Envision program, to rebuild severely storm-damaged homes has finally got legs, thanks to ODR. Last year, we told you we were transferring it from Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority into the Office of Disaster Recovery, and it has paid dividends. The Envision Tomorrow team is currently tracking 100 homes in the construction phase. And we expect another 150 this year. It's almost a 400% increase in activity since we transferred the programs. Homeowners in the rental rehabilitation program will also see progress this year as ODR anticipates getting the first batch of those homes into construction by August. That's a program where we give you up to $50,000 to $100,000 per apartment unit to create affordable housing. Tonight, I want to recognize Ms. Vernell Stevens, Ms. Adelaide Andrew, and Ms. Kay Francis as 3 homeowners who exercise tremendous patience, and we have been able to assist them to get you back in your home. Ms. Stevens and Ms. Andrew are here with us tonight. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. It's not easy when water running in your house every time it rains. In another effort to bolster home ownership, the Own a Lot, Build a Home program is in full swing alongside Banco Popular and Rural Development. This opportunity provides $250,000 in grant funding to allow first-time homeowners to build their dream homes on their land. You may be asking what the difference is. It's the income limits. One is a federal program with income limits, and one doesn't have income limits as strict. Perhaps the most significant development in home ownership in the last 20 years was accomplished last quarter. In the St. Thomas, St. John district, we know home ownership is the biggest hurdle for our people, especially in St. John. Forget about it. But my administration, along with the Jackson Development Company and the Housing Finance Authority, is providing home ownership opportunities to 315 families. This consists of conversion of previous rental housing units from rental home to ownership residence. For those residents in Bellevue Village, Calabash Boom, and Lovenland, I want to congratulate you on your first step to home ownership. And for those who choose not to purchase or are unable to buy the unit, the option to remain a renter will be there at the same rent. In 2024, we also completed the renovation at the Walter I. M. Hodge community, consisting of 248 units across 21 buildings with a senior center. A great achievement. If you see this place, it is like something out of a movie. Beautiful. It's a great achievement, but there's so much more work to do. Our downtown areas were once social and economic hubs, teeming with families and commercial activity. It is frustrating to drive past collapsing buildings. Collapsing buildings like the Apothecary Hall and the building across from where the Durant Tower used to be. Our people need housing. Revitalizing our downtowns presents an opportunity to create new and additional housing while restoring the blight and creating economic activity to these areas. The Abandoned and Derelict Building Act we submitted to the last year is a first step to returning your downtowns to their former glory. I know they're difficult decisions, but senators, we have to move on our downtowns before they crumble completely into dust. As we move forward, we are not only rebuilding our infrastructure, but also preserving our natural heritage, which directly impacts the well-being of our people. After 54 years, I want you to note how long it's taken us to get stuff accomplished in the Virgin Islands, and we're getting them done in this administration. After 54 years and several worthwhile attempts, we have achieved the historic milestone of adopting the territory's first comprehensive land and water use plan with the signing of 8981. In addition, our people have been working. In addition, we got a $69 million NOAA grant, which will expand the territorial park system that we established a couple of years ago, adding over 2,700 acres, including Maroon Ridge, Estate Perseverance, and Most Amount Equal, to protect our green spaces in perpetuity. I got it right that time. This expansion will offer residents greater access to natural spaces, promoting recreation, mental well-being, and environmental stewardship. Similarly, the Department of Agriculture, through a forestry grant, is moving forward with the purchase of 91 acres on Inner Brass Key over in St. Thomas. Once complete, that will also be added to the park system. By the end of this year, our administration would have performed the largest acquisition of land and property for the people of the Virgin Islands in history. we had to leave things out of here. We also bought Diageo and Island Block. But you can't say everything in a report, right? But while buildings and living spaces are important, perhaps one of our most formidable threats is the overall health of our community. On the panel last year, we highlighted the chronic illnesses that plague us and our resistance to taking the medication and the exercise we need to keep living. We are fully committed to fostering a healthy living because, as we know, the sound body is the best. It's the best investment. We're inspired our people to get back outside and embrace a more active and vibrant way of life. The Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation is working diligently to complete recovery repairs territory-wide. On St. Thomas, renovations have been completed at Emil Griffith, Alvin McBean, Joseph Urbane, and Kerwin Terrace ballparks. These parks now feature LED lighting, batting cages, bleachers, scoreboards, and perimeter fencing. In partnership with Sail and Surf, the Ezra Frederick Ballpark in Friedenhoy, you know, the one that looks like a real bother on the side? It will be transformed into a multi-use recreational facilities. Activities will include playground and a new skate park. We broke ground this month. This past year, we celebrated the reopening of two significant recreational facilities on St. John with the Orville Brown basketball court and the Cruz Bay tennis court. They stand as physical symbols of our progress. Meanwhile, in St. Croix, games are now being held at the Rudy Krieger Complex and D.C. Canigata Little League Park, which has rebuilt dugouts and lighting, and the construction at the Reinhold Jackson Park in Wynn will be completed by March of this year, bringing baseball and softball back to the west side of St. Croix. This past year, we celebrated the reopening of newly reconstructed pavilions at Kramer's Park Beach. These new pavilions with grills and fencing, walkways and picnic tables will be utilized for years to come for class reunion, battle of the agencies, and weekend outings. These pavilions symbolize more than just shelter. They represent a commitment to building back better and providing an enhancement beach and experience for residents. The Vincent Mason Pool renovation project in Frederiksted remains on track to be completed by the beginning of summer, just in time for swimming lessons. While we continue to feel exasperated ain't a word, with the current contractor, we can finally see the end of the tunnel. It's hazy for the Poly Joseph Stadium project. I mean, making sure our community has facilities to be active and play with their children and live their best healthy lives is a priority for us. We have plans to install 16 new playgrounds across the territory, ensuring safe and engaging play areas for our children. We're also making upgrades to Medrick Cummins, the much-worn park fencing and all the mulch in there, and lighting improvements. All of these things we're doing to make sure that our kids and our families have inexpensive and safe places to play. When I said last year we would have carnival races again at Clinton E. Phipps racetrack, many doubted. I knew in my heart what it meant for our community to have the resumption of horse racing. Indeed, the community was overwhelmed with excitement, and it came out in record numbers to support our jockeys and horse enthusiasts. With the commitment of dedication of Southland Gaming and Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation, the thunder of hoofbeat have been heard in 4 race cars in 6 months. It should be evident. By this time, it should be evident to everyone, we've done everything we can do, that VIGL does not have the wherewithal nor the resources to rebuild the track. Today, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against VIGL for the breach of a contract. We have the resources. We already have $12 million on our own, and we, the government, can rebuild the Randall Doc James track and restore horse racing to St. Croix. The Department of Health continues to tackle health disparities by expanding access to care. Another remarkable thing that happened last year, Through the Department of Defense Innovative Readiness Training Program, we welcome over 300 military medical professionals to the Virgin Islands, our largest health event in the history. The USVI Wellness Fair went on for 7 days. They delivered $2.25 million in free medical service, no charge, to our residents, impacting over 2,100 individuals across 3 islands. The health fair is scheduled to return this summer to provide expanded no-cost services for our residents, including dental care, optometry, medical screenings, pediatric physicals, and vaccinations. Residents will again have access to routine physical and emergency exams, teeth cleanings, fillings, and extractions, as well as assessments for blood pressure, cholesterol, glucose, and mental wellness. We have also completed the USVI Cancer Plan, the first comprehensive guide to address our territory's cancer burden. This plan also aims to reduce incidences and mortality rates and alleviate the economic burden of care, bolstering our commitment to combat cancer. Charlotte Kimmelman Cancer Institute remains on schedule for a November 2025 completion date. In the meantime, we have granted over $300,000 in assistance to nonprofits that helps families travel abroad for care so that they could travel at cost of travel expenses and housing. We look forward to resuming the much-needed oncology services for the people of the Virgin Islands and patients from our neighboring islands. In October 2024, Snyder Regional Medical Center celebrated a significant milestone with the grand opening of its newly expanded hemodialysis unit. The hemodialysis unit is the only facility in the region with a 4-star rating, reflecting its exceptional care. Through the support of a $2 million grant from my administration, dialysis patients in this St. Croix district can now receive service at the Virgin Islands Healthcare Foundation Renal Center, its location in Sunny Isles. The CMS-certified 12-chair facility has a capability of serving up to 78 patients weekly. The opening of the nationally affiliated dialysis center will increase accessibility and fill this significant gap in healthcare. We are making progress with improving the state of healthcare in our territory. JFL North is now online, but there were apparent gaps in the form and function of this interim facility. We had to purchase another 5 acres that had and lease warehouse space and parking lot. We also recall the vital services that were affected during the hurricanes, after the hurricanes, causing our dialysis patients to be relocated to the mainland. Subsequently, patients were receiving care in trailers. This summer, JFL will transition into its dialysis unit to a brick and mortar facility. But let's face it, the challenges of providing health care existed before the storms, and it will continue after, until we address the issue of the tremendous uncompensated care burden in our territory. The solution will require legislation and collaboration between our 2 branches of government and our healthcare institutions to create some kind of inclusive, mandatory health insurance for everybody, with workers and employees contributing. It has to be done. We simply can't afford to give everybody care for free. We've made tremendous progress in increasing our Medicaid cap. Working with the delegate, we've got it now that we only pay 17% of the match, but it's not enough. We are meeting the challenges facing our territory head on, starting with the well-being of our children. We are committed to strengthening our child protections programs, to safeguard and strengthen the most vulnerable among us. The growing social and emotional struggles faced by school-age children demand our attention. At the same time, we must stand firm against those who threaten the safety and the innocence of our youth. There is no place for such individuals or those who condone them in our community. We will continue to protect our children and ensure that our homes and our schools have the support they need. This last decade has brought tumultuous change for all of us, especially in the lives of our young Virgin Islanders. Yet in the face of this reality, they continue to adapt, persevere, and rise above the challenges before them. Our students are not just overcoming, they are excelling. The Department of Education is championing student success with targeted initiative approaches that celebrate our unique identity and equip our youth for global competitiveness. Virgin Islands students are now learning from a groundbreaking VI-centric civics textbook, fostering a deep understanding of national and local governments. Programs like the Film and Writing Academies empower our students to tell their stories of uncertainty and triumph, while the planned addition of the new STEAM centers in both districts introduce cutting-edge technology such as 3D printers, opening doors to careers in science and technology, engineering and arts. The excellence of our school has not gone unnoticed. U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona hailed the 2024 National Blue Ribbon Schools as raising the bar for our students. Last year, 3 of our schools were recognized as beacons of innovation and achievement. I want to congratulate our very own Ricardo Richards Elementary School as being recognized as a national Blue Ribbon School. Our students' academic performance underscores this progress. Since 2021, we have seen significant improvements in the annual assessments for science, reading, and math, key pillars of lifelong success. In science, our students moved from 45% to 64%. This is a 40% increase in student performance that at or near grade level. These gains are mirrored by results on a Smarter Balance assessment with an increase of 49% in English language arts and math proficiency, demonstrating the transformative impact of a focused and passionate Department of Education. But this progress would not be possible without the extraordinary dedication of our teachers, those who inspire, ignite curiosity, and change lives every day. Educators like Ms. Cherise C. Davis, St. Croix District Teacher of the Year, and Mr. Cornell Hanley, St. Thomas St. John Teacher of the Year, embody this commitment. Their passion is matched by Andre Douglas. I've actually been to his classroom of Ivana and Dora Hayen High School, who efforts to make, get this, mathematics palatable, enjoyable, and memorable. It earned him the prestigious Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Andre Douglas, ladies and gentlemen. Change, progress, and transformation are sparked by learning and ignited by teaching. These sparks become a flame of innovation and inspiration when fueled by environments that nurture growth. Through the Bureau of School Construction and Maintenance, which was launched this past summer, we are working to ensure every child has a safe, functional space to learn and grow. From replacing air-conditioned units and addressing roof repairs, drainage and sewage issues, we are transforming our schools into places where students and educators can thrive. Education is the foundation of progress, but for our people to thrive, they must grow up in communities where safety is not a hope, but a guarantee. While we celebrate the achievement of our students, we cannot ignore the growing threat of crime and fear that undermine their potential and disrupt all of our futures. That's why we're investing in community programs and investing and expanding support for youth and creating pathways for healing. We are taking bold and decisive steps toward a safer, more just Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands Police Department is transforming with critical upgrades in infrastructure and cutting-edge technology like traffic light enforcement systems. And the e-citation project. That's right, people. Your ticket's coming in the mail. You better stop running them red lights. Email. These innovations pair with 180 new surveillance cameras. We're watching you. This is strengthening our community trust and enhancing our ability to protect and serve And as we work tirelessly to make our communities safer, we continue to strengthen our law enforcement efforts. Recently, we welcomed 32 Virgin Islands Police Academy graduates. Each of these individuals undergone extensive training and is committed to ensuring the safety and well-being of our citizens. We will continue to leverage both advanced technology and human intelligence to combat crime and protect our communities. The work we are doing today will lay the foundation for a safer tomorrow. But despite our best efforts, 44 homicides occurred in 2024. We had 7 homicides from January to June and 37 from July to December. Breaking this cycle requires more than just law enforcement. It demands urgent, decisive action in prevention, intervention, and healing. But on the prosecution front, the Department of Justice is taking a firm stance against violent and white-collar crime. Reflecting our determination to address this serious issue head-on, in 2024, 33 homicide cases were prosecuted. Although the prosecution of homicides often lags due to the complexity of investigation and trials, the AG remains committed to bringing justice to the victims and their families. In addition to homicides, we are prioritizing domestic violence and mental health-related offenses and the illegal possession of firearms. Our Department of Justice is also spearheading efforts to work with the judiciary for the backlog, improve collaboration with the VIPD, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Superior Court judges in moving cases along. The Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency earned an Emergency Management Accreditation Program certification in October. If anybody know about emergency management, it's us, right? This milestone comes on the heels of another challenging year, marked by Tropical Storm Ernesto. The boats on the waterfront still reminding us it passed. We are deeply grateful to former President Biden for granting our request for a presidential major disaster declaration, which greatly aided our efforts in responding to the storm's damages. These achievements reflect our ongoing commitment to strengthening emergency response capabilities in the face of increasing challenge and climate change. This milestone is particularly significant because it makes us the first territory to get this certification. So to support our emergency efforts, along with this certification, we also secured another $161 million from the Bureau of Information Technology to make sure that our communication infrastructure is good, further enhancing our preparedness for future emergency. But all this support and all the things that I mentioned can only be paid for and sustained based on the fiscal health of the territory. And the government finances. Tonight I wish to express my gratitude again for the establishment of a $50 million line of credit to help manage the government's finances. This line of credit is a financial tool that any billion-dollar government should have at its disposal. Given the cyclical nature of revenue collection, this line has already proven invaluable in assisting with vendor obligations. I'm proud to report tonight that we have utilized $25 million out of the line to pay outstanding obligations. I want to be clear, though. We have the resources to pay our bills, manage our costs, and maintain a balanced budget. But as in all management and budget operation, we must make prudent choices. Legislature, I get it. As politicians, we know that our people appreciate buildings for a lot longer than they appreciate retro pay, 8% paybacks, and salary increases. These structures stand as long-lasting reminders of our individual contribution to our communities. But senators, let's use these proceeds from recently settled lawsuits that are in cash to settle our old debts rather than create new debts. We already have over $20 billion in construction. Let us use this money to put our finances in order. There's trouble brewing. The rum cover over is crucial to sustaining the vibrancy of this Virgin Islands economy and the payment of our matching fund bonds. Our ongoing funding uncertainty threatens the solvency of our pension system. In 2024, in conjunction with the delegate, we worked hard, advocating aggressively, lobbying Congress to permanently set the cover-over rate at $13.25. But to no avail. This remains a top priority for this administration. And this new Congress, hopefully the gridlock eases and we can have positive action to restore the rum cover-over to the rate. This is why our official visits to Washington, D.C. are so important. Many issues remain on our federal radar to address our need for additional workers, changes to the tax code, our treatment by the U.S. National Park Service, immigration, and border security, as well as a safe restart to the refinery in St. Croix. But all our progress, all our hard-fought victories can be undone by the actions or inaction of just a few. This year, our community has been confronted with painful truth as accusations of corruption have shaken both the private and the public sectors, within and beyond our government. As your governor, the reality has weighed very heavily on me. I have pored over policies, scrutinized procedures, reviewed codes of conduct, and examined indictments, searching for the fault lines that allow these things to happen. Now, some may seize this moment to paint the entire Bryan Roach administration with the brush of corruption. But let me be clear, my concern is not for our reputation alone. My fear is that these accusations will cast a shadow over the character of all Virgin Islanders, whether they serve in public office or across business institutions in daily life. I firmly reject this narrative. We are people of integrity, resilience, and faith, hardworking individuals committed to creating better lives for our families and communities. What defines us should never be limited to the actions of any one group. In my reflections on this, I've come to a sobering reality. No policy, no procedure, no code of conduct can entirely guard against human weakness. Trust is the foundation of government. And when that trust is violated, it plants a toxic seed of doubt. As your governor, alongside my administration, I am steadfast in my commitment to uproot this mistrust and restore faith in our institutions. Let me say unequivocally, we will have zero tolerance for corruption in any form in this administration. Today, I have signed into existence a new comprehensive code of ethics. Corruption, whether it manifests itself as theft, fraud, or the misappropriations of funds, is a cancer that threatens the very lifeblood of our community. Our charge is to protect government resources, to fortify our defenses. We have built a framework for transparency and accountability that is stronger than ever before. We have implemented clear and competitive bidding processes. We've modernized procurement legislation. We require transparency from the government of the Virgin Islands for all our projects. We have enforced strict bonding requirements and upheld standards for environmental, archaeological, and historic preservation, ensuring every project is not only legally compliant, but aligned with our environmental and sustainability goals. These measures are not just symbolic, they reflect our unwavering commitment to integrity and ethical leadership. Further, the Division of Personnel has now implemented mandatory training for government employees, including members of my cabinet, on the principles of ethical governance. This effort is bolstered by the updated Code of Conduct, replacing an executive order dating back to 1961, that's 64 years ago. Our administration is determined to emerge from this chapter stronger, more transparent, and more resilient. Together, we are building a legacy of trust and accountability that will define the Virgin Islands for generations to come. Let this moment be a turning point, not just for our government, but for the collective conscience of our community. Our journey has never been about building monuments. It has always been about changing the mindset, lives, and futures of all Virgin Islanders, as well as shaping the course of these islands. The key theme of my administration has been persistence, staying the course no matter the challenges. In less than 25 years, we will celebrate 200 years of emancipation. In just 8 years, we will mark 300 years since the St. John Revolt of 1733. And in 3 years, we will honor the 150th anniversary of the fire burn. In 1917, when America was on the rise, our fate seemed uncertain. Yet within 10 years of that transfer, we had gained American citizenship. And in less than 50 years, we achieved self-governance. Despite how far we have come, we still have much to do. In just a few months, we will gather for our 6th Constitutional Convention. Let this be the final time we go through this process. We must create a new, inclusive constitution that reflects who we are as a multi-ethnic, multi-racial, and multi-denominational people living proudly under the stars and stripes. I remain concerned about how we continue to delay our full potential and prosperity we have worked hard to build. Opportunities to break free from poverty and improve our lives are here. Yet, too many of us seem either unprepared, unwilling, or just afraid to take action. Figures like David Hamilton Jackson, Earl B. Otley, and many other great Virgin Islanders overcame significant challenges to advance these islands we call home today. We cannot let their sacrifices go to waste through fear or apathy. It is up to us, not just the legislature or the people in this building, Virgin Islanders. It is up to us to honor their legacy and fulfill our potential. So although we are progressing through the throes of change, greater good requires action. And sometimes that action is unpopular. Our legacy and our fortunes are one and the same, and if not curated well, we will have the risk of falling once again into disrepair. Senators, let us not exit these halls and pick up the battering ram of our political offices for the sake of acrimony and personal ambition. Let us work together to pass legislation that inspires wealth acquisition and encourages greater home ownership and business development for our people. Virgin Islanders, leadership is a lonely station. Your senators, the lieutenant governor, and I can attest to such. The priorities before us may at times compete and conflict, but together we are about these Virgin Islands and its residents and our overall well-being. Rest assured, your government is working for you. And if this government is to endure, your full participation is required. You must take advantage of the opportunities. Work with us to build community. Shine the light on wrongdoing and wrongdoers. Embrace a healthy lifestyle and commit to preserving our natural environment and our territorial treasures. Let us strengthen our resolve to collectively clear away the rubble that has mired us in a mindset of disaster and crisis. Our vision for our community is a common one. Let us not waver when it comes to promoting responsible citizenship. We shall remain unrelenting, unflinching on our course to progress. The road ahead may not always be easy, but together we will overcome any challenge that stands in our way, including the throes of progress. As James Weldon so eloquently stated, sing a song full of faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. God bless you. God bless the Virgin Islands. Love you.
Your Honor.
All right, and that was the governor giving his seventh State of the Territory address. If you are still with us, the governor is about to depart the halls of the Earl B. Otley Legislative Chambers shortly. And we're going to sit here and we're going to recap and we're going to hear some reactions from lawmakers and also from you later on in the show. But right now, Hugo, I want to go to you. Tell me, what was your reaction on the governor's address this evening?
I think he covered a lot of the topics that people wanted to hear about. I appreciate that he went into some discussion on the elephant in the room, which is the I'll call it a scandal or the accusations or the indictments of some of his cabinet members. I think it's always tricky to get into those subject matter when it's an ongoing criminal case, particularly when you're not trying to taint the jury pool. You're trying to afford people due process, as everyone's entitled to in this country. You're innocent until proven guilty, or supposed to be at least. So I appreciate the effort in doing so, and hope that it'll reach those in those positions and the rest of the community, for that matter, to operate themselves in a certain manner. I definitely think it's long overdue for the action being threatened for VIGL and the lawsuit that was filed. It's been stagnant for way too long, and we deserve to have horse racing back on the island of St. Croix. Infrastructure was discussed in a lot of different ways. Waste management was in discussion. I think the Public Service Commission needs to be held to a more accountable level than they're being held to. They are the ones that provide the rates for that agency to be solvent, and their fiduciary responsibility is twofold for every agency to regulate. It's one, to keep the public best interest, but two, to keep the entity solvent, because that in itself is in the best interest of the public, yes. Right? So I mean, diversification of the economy, the mention of all the energy projects. I can't go without talking about energy. The solar. I think the 16 and 20 megawatt farms put St. Croix at about 40 megawatts of solar when it's all said and done. A system that probably peaks at 45 megawatts right now. That's quite significant, to have solar and battery of that magnitude, and still have prudent replacement approved for, I think it's some $400 million for St. Croix for new generations. So maybe more than that, actually. So I think it was well-rounded. Definitely the highlights of where we are tourism-wise, the high rating, high rankings, regionally as well as nationally, the top-tier destination. All those things were welcome to hear.
Usi, what did you think of the governor's State of the Territory address? Did it leave you wanting any more?
Well, I would initially say, and we spoke about this off camera, but the understanding of basically what the State of the Territory address is, whether it's the State of the Territory, the State of the Union. It is a forum and an opportunity in this instance for the governor to speak of his accomplishments over the past year, and hopefully to not solely speak of his accomplishments over the past year, but more importantly, the need to acknowledge some of the shortcomings. The shortcomings were acknowledged, at least in my opinion, in some instances, in a very low capacity. I think the subject matter that I was concerned with at the beginning of this discussion in regards to infrastructure, whether it was the schools, whether it was the hospitals, whether it was our roads, whether it was our wastewater, or the management of garbage throughout the territory, is still a significant issue that needs to be addressed by the administration. And the beginning of his remarks, where he identified and he mentioned us suffering from 2 Category 5 hurricanes, which we're all familiar with, particularly since that's some 8 years ago. We're almost going into a decade later and still suffering from the effects of the lack of the implementation of some of the infrastructure that needs to be addressed, where we've had before us and within our coffers a large sum of money amounting to more than billions of dollars. And I think that as a community and as our citizenry, we are not feeling comfortable listening and hearing that we're coming to you soon. I know we had some mention of contracts being issued for schools, which is a complete distinct difference than work beginning. And so they plan to enter into contracts before the end of the year. And in some instances, for instance, the Arthur A. Richards Elementary School, he said that will be ready in August of 2026.
Yes.
We still haven't met August of 2025. So we have some serious concerns that I think that the community wants to see addressed in a more speedily manner.
Yeah. Janika, tell me, what are your thoughts? You know, this is the 7th State of the Territory address. We heard a lot from infrastructure. What more did you want to hear?
So as I had said beforehand, I was really hoping to get a really good assessment of the state of the economy in a structural way. So how are our revenues looking vis-a-vis the expenditures that we have to undertake? And I think that it is would be useful for the territory to separate out the influx of federal dollars from the revenue that the territory is able to generate for itself, for tax revenue and so on, because we all know that the recovery money, the recovery funds will come to an end at some point. Are we getting the economy to a place where when that money is no longer available, the engine of growth is still there? I mean, you know, it's kind of hard for me as a journalist to react immediately to a speech that I've just heard. You know that I like to go and, make my notes, do my research, pull up articles from 5 years ago, etc. But I feel like we are still, or I don't feel, let me just speak for myself, don't feel like I'm getting a really solid grasp of exactly where the territory is in terms of its just revenue expenditure and leaving out that federal money, which can influence. It's a lot of money. It's coming in all at once, obligations here, there, and everywhere. But structurally, how is the territory doing? And I don't feel like I got a good sense of that, me personally. Very interesting lawsuit against VIGL. That was one of the stalled projects that we spoke about. So it's interesting to see this action being taken. I am, going to hop on to the court, docket tomorrow and see what I can find of that lawsuit. Very interesting for me that he really admitted that we simply cannot afford to pay the retroactive pay that was promised. So I see that he has put that back onto the legislature and said, hey, reappropriate some funds, juggle some money around and see what you can do. Yeah. But that, I think, is going to be a major sticking point for the executive to find, how they're going to pay that money that was promised back. So lots of interesting things to digest. I think it was, the speech was in his usual, optimistic and ebullient style. But when you really start to parse and look deeper, there are some concerns that I don't necessarily believe were adequately addressed.
Okay. We've had a lot of conversation off camera. You were jotting your notes down.
Yes, I was.
Tell me, what was your thoughts on the governor's address?
I have to agree with Janika on what I heard this evening. I expected more. I expected more solid information. I think we're at the place where the people of the Virgin Islands want to hear timelines as it relates to our disaster recovery. But I want to go back to what former Senator Usi Richards said as it relates to what does a state of the territory address mean and what you should get out of it. And I do agree that, we should have heard more about the accomplishments over the past year. And it's very obvious that the accomplishments, we are short on accomplishments. And we need to use this as a lesson to ensure that we are able to push forward in the upcoming year. So the governor talked about the implementation of cannabis. And of course, that legislation was passed in 2023. Yes, somewhere about end of 2022, 2023. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come online. That is supposed to be a major economic driver, revenue producer. It's projected to produce some $15 million. So it's my fervent hope that as we do the work, as he does the work in his administration, that next time we will hear that we are seeing the fruits of that labor. Now, as it relates to, and I want to go back a bit to the disaster recovery projects, I really believe that, we've heard from this administration over and over that we're going to see schools demolished, and we haven't seen that. We have just one school that's currently being rebuilt. We did a lot of work in the legislature around the rebuilding, the land swap, and the urgency for the land swap. And we haven't heard this evening about the rebuilding or the building of the Sproul School in St. John, the new school in St. John, in a meaningful. It was very, glossed over. As it relates to the retro, I think it's important that I touch the retro, as I served as the chair of the Finance Committee at the time when the commitment was made that the government of the Virgin Islands, the chief executive, and the Office of OMB made a commitment and wrote it. It was in writing. I requested it in writing that they send down to the legislature how they would pay the retro, and they committed that they would utilize $30 million or $25 million from the ARPA funds, and those funds were drawn down for that specific purpose. I think it is, it's just not in our best interest to put that back on the legislature. I think that and it was said earlier, the legislative branch did its work. The legislative branch did its job. And I believe that for the governor to come down into the chambers of the legislature and demand that the legislators utilize other funding or other resources for this purpose, when we took our time, when legislators took their time to pass legislation to identify, or took the time to identify the funding, I believe that the executive branch needs to go back to the drawing board and make their own necessary cuts to address the challenges that they have with paying out the retro. And one of the things that jumped out at me was the fact that the governor is suggesting in his State of the Territory this evening that we should move away from the Nazareth Park for our children. We talked about children and the importance of, promoting and supporting our children in the Virgin Islands. But in fact, we want to have a one and done conversation about paying out the retro out of these funds and moving away from having the opportunity for our children to have the soccer fields and the baseball fields and the tennis fields and the cricket opportunities. So definitely that's something that is of concern to me. I will say, though, that from the economic development perspective, there is good work occurring in the Virgin Islands Port Authority. So you see where the Port Authority is, moving forward with their projects. I didn't hear this evening, though, about the dredging projects, the dredging of both projects, particularly the dredging in Charlotte Mali. Those funds were set aside. It was talked about in the last State of the Territory. The funds were set aside mid last year, and that project, we didn't hear whether or not that project is about to take off. And the home ownership opportunities, as I was sharing with the panel earlier, my concern is I'm all for home ownership, but I believe that we should have identified properties, land in both districts, and utilize that $74 million to support new homes in the territory, because we have a housing stock challenge in the territory. So Overall, I believe that the state of the territory, there was a lot of glossing over of things that are important that we really need to drill down more to get more information so the people could feel comfortable with what's happening in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, okay. We have Clifford Joseph on line 1. Hi, good evening, Senator Joseph.
This is Liz Kruger right now. I'm going to put him on right now, okay? One second.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, good evening, Senator Joseph.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good.
All right. Now, Senator Joseph, give us your reactions to the governor's State of the Territory address. You're a freshman senator coming in. Tell me, what were your thoughts on the governor's address?
Overall, I mean, the portion with the money for the territories always sounds good. But I mean, I think we need a clear cut of what the government, what the government really has and doesn't have, because when you keep saying about what's there and federally going to be funded, and then we don't see projects completed, then at some point we come back and hear about matching. So a lot of it was somewhat vague when we spoke about what the police department were doing different, that they could have controlled the homicide rate at 7 by June and 30 homicide from June to December. That's alarming.
Yeah.
That's really alarming. I mean, I looked at that a little more because I am over Homeland Security, so those questions I could ask myself as well, but still the numbers are alarming.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Hugo, you have any questions for the senator?
No, I guess, Senator, congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
As far as what you just mentioned with the Homeland Security being on your jurisdiction, as well as the numbers you heard, what would you propose? What do you have in mind to propose to combat crime?
The combating is one thing, but something has to be in place for making sure justice have what they have after the police makes the arrest, because there's a breakdown in between there. And I think once we start to prosecute individuals in a faster manner, I think the behavior will change, because I feel like, just like anything else, if people feel you ain't doing nothing about something, they continue doing it and they'll get out of control. And like I said, we have a breakdown and we're going to try and get it fixed. I ain't shying away from issues that we have. So that for sure needs to happen. Justice needs to make sure prosecution take place sharply after the arrest, because when you leave people in limbo for a long time, most of the 10 times they get in front of the judge, some little technicality, and this is a free man. Nobody wants to lose a loved one and see somebody walking down a street that we think was accused. So it's either they're going to be prosecuted, but when they're set free, they leave for too much street justice, and the place ringing crazy with street justice.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Joseph, for calling in. We do have Senator Blyden on line 2. Good evening, Senator Blyden.
Yes, hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Janika, do you have any questions for Senator Blyden?
Senator Blyden, how are you doing this evening?
I'm fine, and yourself?
I'm good. What I wanted to know is, what was the one thing that you liked about the speech and one thing that you would have liked to hear more of?
Can you repeat that, please? Did you cut off twice? Say that one more time, please.
Sorry, I wanted to find out what was the one thing that you heard that you liked the most about the governor's speech, and also the one thing that you were not a fan of.
Well, of course, good evening again. The one thing I was glad to hear, of course, was the home ownership opportunities for the folks in Loveland, Bellevue, and Calabash Grove, because we know they have been waiting for some time. And I have been a big part of that from the beginning in terms of assuring that would occur. So I was very happy to hear that. I was also happy to hear the Invision program, the progress they're making moving forward, and I'm very, very glad for that. The one thing I was not happy about in terms of the $22 billion that's being awarded to the Virgin Islands, I believe many of our constituents, the business owners, the workers, are not seeing the trickle-down effect of those dollars. So I look forward to seeing how we can assure that the money gets to the
little man on the street and our people as a whole, because they need to be the winner and the breadwinner of all of these money that are circulating to our economy, because the people are not feeling it. That's what I'm hearing from them. And that's why I'm going to champion actually bringing forth legislation to deal with the minimum wage and other opportunities for our local small businesses to assure that they get the fair share of all these billions of federal dollars flowing through our economy, to include the marine industry. So all in all, I'm pretty optimistic about the future. I look forward to working with the administration and my colleagues in assuring that we accomplish all of the things that were stated in the speech this evening.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Blyden, for calling in. We do want to keep the call going. And on line 3, we have Carla Joseph. Good evening, Senator Joseph.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. This is Ms. Douglas.
All right. Senator Joseph, please turn on your TV or what you have in the background, please.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Senator Joseph. We are just hearing a little feedback in your background. This
I'm trying to get an area that we aren't going to receive any feedback.
No problem. This Usi Richards, we're interested at least to hearing from you. You're not a first-time senator. You've been in the legislature for a couple of terms. What is your comparison from what was shared in the last territorial address in comparison to this year's territorial address, as far as accomplishments and things that are getting done through the administration?
Well, what I can say is I'm very pleased, coming from my background in federal grant management, that the governor has obligated all of the federal funds. So that is an astounding accomplishment. And so I'm very happy to hear that. I didn't hear anything about collections, and I'm very concerned about this one in and one out with the lawsuit money from the Jeffrey Epstein lawsuit. That is a big concerning, to pay off the debt. These monies can and should be used so that we could have a level of reoccurring source of funds. And everyone knows that sport, tourism is a $1 billion industry. So I'm concerned about that. And also, I really liked what he talked about, building trust. But we all know as leaders, trust has to begin at the top. We have this, as he termed it, this toxic seed of doubt in our minds. How did that happen? That didn't just come up because of these cases. The legislature, the 35th legislature, moved $25 million to pay our hard-working in government employees. What happened with that?
Yeah.
Governor arbitrarily moved it and spent it how he wants. So when you talk about trust, it begins at the top.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator Joseph. I do appreciate you calling in. We do want to keep the line moving, okay? All right. We have Senator Gittins on line 2. Good evening, Senator Gittins.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good evening, Senator Gittins.
Hi, Senator Gittins. This is Donna Gregory. How are you this evening?
Hi, I'm blessed, and yourself?
Great. Very quickly, as the former chair of the Homeland Security, Justice, and Public Safety Committee of the legislature, what are your thoughts on what the governor shared with regards to his accomplishments in 2024 and the way forward?
Well, I'll first start out by saying that the governor's State of the Territory address was both insightful and moving, and I appreciated the clearer timelines that he's provided thus far. As he rightfully stated, however, we have the resources to meet our obligations, but it must be done prudently. And I agree with his approach, and now it's time to demonstrate that some level of fiscal responsibility into action. With regards to public safety, we do need to see more happening on the enforcement end, and I was pleased to hear him say that his administration will not tolerate any public corruption. I also, let me also applaud the gain in tourism as well, and the island of St. Croix. But we must take advantage of the opportunities before us and start to complete some of those projects, for instance, the Poly Joseph Stadium and our terminals.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Senator Gittins, for calling in and for giving us your reactions to the governor's address this evening.
Thank you.
All right. We have Senator Alma Francis Heiliger on the line. Good evening, Senator Heiliger.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent.
Now, Senator Francis Heiliger, do you think that the governor addressed, some of the concerns of your constituents this evening?
It's not so much I think he addressed them. I think he repeated what they were. I mean, if we know we have sewage in the middle of the street and your response in the state of the territory is, okay, we're going to fix it, what does that mean to me? What does that mean to the residents? I think where he kind of missed the ball is he could have expounded on a few things just to give people an idea as to the direction that his administration is going into in really trying to resolve some of these issues that are plaguing the people of the territory. He spoke about the Envision Tomorrow program. As you know, it's almost 700 homes in that program that are still trying to get assistance. He talked about 100 already started, potentially 150 coming online this year. That leaves, another 450 people that have no idea what's going on. I think if you're going to speak about the ills or the concerns of the people, even if you just gave them a little bit to say, hey, this is what we're going to be doing with the program, this is how we're going to progress, even if you guys got to hold on, we're doing it for you. And I think that's where the disconnect from a lot of his message was. He just said, okay, we have these issues and we're going to fix it. That doesn't really mean much to people if you don't give them a pathway as to what this fix is going to be.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, for calling in and giving us your reaction to the governor's address. Truly appreciate it.
All righty. Have a blessed day.
All righty. Now we have Senator Kurt Viale on the line. Good evening, Senator Viale.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. I believe Janika has a question for you.
Sure, go ahead, Janika.
Senator, hi. I know that you're on education this time around, but I'm going to ask you about finance. I wanted to find out your opinion of the, what the governor indicated about the rise in the tourism numbers. Have you or do you believe that this rise is also going to be reflected in the revenues that the territory is seeing? And just your general opinion on the economic trajectory of the territory at the moment?
And that's an excellent question. I've been following the numbers for the government of the Virgin Islands. I've been looking at the financial reports for this fiscal year, the month of October, November, and December. And despite the rise in the number of tourists visiting the island, we're actually $18 million less than was collected in fiscal year 24. Now, the sad thing about that is the fiscal year 24 collected overall some $70 million less than fiscal year 23. So the collections this year is the worst that it has been in probably the last 4 fiscal years. So somehow the additional tourists isn't really correlating with the numbers that I'm seeing in the financial report. The money is collected for income tax. We have seen a significant drop. So I was quite surprised when I heard the portion of the budget that we have money, we were able to have a balanced budget. Money is not an issue. Well, when in fact we get so many phone calls in reference to outstanding vendor payments owed by this government that date back to last fiscal year. So it's going to be very important for the legislature to have that fact-finding hearing where we're going to be able to dig a lot deeper into what is really going on financially with the government of the Virgin Islands, because it's not adding up. You can't have money and then you can't meet vendor payments. So it's not really correlated.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Senator Viale. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All righty.
No problem.
All right. And we have Senator Johnson on the line. Good evening, Senator Johnson.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Good evening. I believe that Usi has a question for you.
Sure. Good evening, Senator.
Good evening. We were concerned, and I believe we also heard you on WTJX news on this subject matter of sports facilities, particularly the Parley Joseph Stadium. Can you share with us what is your position in regards to getting the project moving? Do you believe the general engineer contractors should be treated in the same manner as the governor proposed to deal with his filing with VIGL, since they've been around for a period of time?
More like that than VIGL and out, because that's our money that we put into that. We put some nearly $30 million and it's seen nothing. But even today, I received some calls from some attorney that have some issues with the company not paying the contractors. So this thing is deep, and I think that what Governor Mapp did with Line 3, we have to go after all of the assets, and that's what we need to do, because we're hearing rumors about bankruptcy, rumors about you selling the company to a next group out of St. Thomas. And if these things are going on and our project that we gave all of this money is not being completed, then we need to take a stand and take it back.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Johnson, for calling in. We truly appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, we have Senator Maurice James on the line.
Hello.
Hi, good evening, Senator Maurice.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me, Senator James?
Hi.
Hi, good evening. Yes.
Good evening.
Yes.
Hi, Senator Maurice James. How are you? This is Donna Fred Gregory. How are you this evening? Good. Well,
Hi, how are you? Of course, my voice is a little hoarse because I didn't know that it's flu. I'm here.
Very quickly, as the former chair of education, I'm sure that you have other impressions about the speech, but as the former chair of education and workforce development, what are your thoughts around the governor's information that he shared this evening with regards to the accomplishments in education around the test scores?
Well, that was a surprise to me, quite frankly, because I had never received anything up until the end of the 35th legislature. So that is something now, as a member of I'm still on the education committee, although I'm not the chair. I actually would like to delve in a little more into what that really translates for us, because that was a surprise. I'll say that was a surprise. It's a pleasant surprise, though. Think about it, because if we've seen an increase in our scores, that's what we want. We want to achieve. So if they've been able to do that over the past year, I am very confident that we can even go further with our children with that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator James, for calling in. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
All right. And I believe we have Senator Novo Francis on the line. Good evening, Senator Francis.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
All right. I believe, Hugo, you have a question for Senator Francis.
Good evening, Senator.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Hodge. How are you doing?
Mostly sunny. Hope all is well with you.
Good, thanks, yeah.
Can you please provide your reaction to the address? Maybe what you found to be positive, what not so positive. What did you take from the address tonight?
Well, certainly I believe that the governor's speech continued to be insightful and upbeat. You know, certainly this is his seventh State of the Territory address, and I've had the opportunity to sit in all 7 of his State of the Territory address. I think for me, this evening, I believe that he was not only willing to discuss the accomplishment and progress of the administration, but also the challenges that confront us and moving the territory forward. So I have appreciation for him, both balancing the discussion of progress and accomplishment as well as the challenges that confront us. And it really speaks to us all sitting down as elected leaders and being able to provide that roadmap by which we intend to move to address some of those challenges that he expressed. So I'm looking forward to us doing that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Francis, for calling in. We appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome.
All right. And on the line, we have Hubert Frederick. Good evening, Senator Frederick.
Good evening.
How are you doing this evening?
Pretty good. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak with you guys.
All right. Now, Senator Frederick, you are a freshman senator. You're coming into this. Now, tell me, were there any key issues that the governor failed to address this evening that you were hoping to hear about?
I wish he talked a little bit more about the progress on St. Croix in terms of simple things. Some of the low-hanging fruit issues like roads, the potholes. That has been one of the most common themes I heard when I was campaigning. What are we going to do with these roads? Because, we talked about cost of living. This is a cost of living issue. If you tear up your tires, mess up your front end, it's going to cost you and your family a lot of money. And that's the basic, simple things I think people wanted to hear. What's being done with these dangerous roads? I mean, that the grass is growing in roads, causing a 2-lane road to be a single-lane road. What's being done with simple things like that? I know his job is to tell the great job his administration is doing. I'm here to represent those people who don't see anything being done, and so I'm wanting to see what is he doing to address just the simple things right now. We'll get into the $22 billion in federal funding and all the other issues later on, but let's address the simple things.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Frederick, for calling in.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. And I believe we have the Senate President, Milton Potter, on the line. Good evening, Senator Potter.
Hi, good evening.
All right. Now, Senator Potter, Mr. Richards, Usi, do you have a question for the Senate President?
Well, I think it's important during this his time as presidency that he gives us at least his impression of what he gathered from the governor's address, how he understood the projection being made by the governor in regards to the the role of the legislature.
All right. Senator Potter, are you still with us?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
Well, look, absolutely. I think the governor made, as it could be expected, the governor gave pretty upbeat speech. Basically expected that. He does well in this type of arena. The governor has been doing this for the last 7 years. So, nothing that he said really surprised me as far as the positivity displayed. But the positive and upbeat nature, I think, of his presentation, I think it was in contrast to the reality that the man and woman, the average Virgin Islander on the street is experiencing. I think just the whole idea of the inflationary pressures that is really threatening to cripple regular Virgin Islander, the cost of utilities, WAPA, food prices in the stores, affordable housing. These are really significant issues that the people of the Virgin Islands are being threatened with. And so I think that, by and large, governor's presentation was a bit, but as I said, I don't think it was in sync with the realities that the man and woman on the street is experiencing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator President Potter, for calling in and giving us your reaction. Definitely appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we have Senator Ray Fonseca on the line. Good evening, Senator Fonseca.
Hi. Good evening, Ms. Makita Russell. How are you doing?
This is Marcelina Ventura Douglas, but you're here with our panelists as well, too. I believe that former Senator Donna Fred Gregory has a question for you.
Hi, good evening, Senator Fonseca. And how are you this evening?
Senator? How are you doing, Senator?
I'm well, thank you. So very quickly, this is your second State of the Territory, or your third, I believe, State of the Territory address. Yes, your third State of the Territory address since you've been serving as senator. Tell me, what did you like about the governor's State of the Territory this evening, and what are the things that you remain concerned about?
Well, and thank you for that question. I listened attentively to all the statements made by a governor in the State of the Territory. I am concerned. I think the community has heard all this rhetoric before. one thing that jumps out to me right away, he mentioned the projects, the important projects that we have planned for out at Eudora, Kent, of us canceling that. So that is definitely a no. Specifically with the health, hospital, and human service areas, I remain very concerned because the waiting lines in the emergency room is still long. There's still staffing shortages, equipment shortages, basic supplies, and nobody can tell me when Juan Louis Hospital, Roy Snyder, or Myra Keaton Clinic going to start or is going to finish. So I'm urging the governor to declare a state of emergency to address these long emergency lines and to reduce the time residents are waiting to see a doctor, and on and on and on. There's also the issues with the borders, the Hobart Great Home for the elderly, the Queen Louise Home. Nobody can tell me when these projects are going to start and they're going to finish. So I'm concerned about that, Senator. But I have to give him some credit. He is doing a lot and he is making some progress in some important areas. But as far as health, hospitals, and human services, we need to do more.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Fonseca, for calling in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings.
All right. And I believe we have Senator Lewis on the line. Good evening, Senator Lewis.
Hi, good evening, and how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Senator Lewis, I believe that Hugo, do you have a question for the senator?
Sure. Good evening, Senator Lewis.
Good evening, Mr. Hatton. How are you doing today?
Excellent, excellent. This is your first address as a senator. Of course, you've been in part of the cabinet before, but as a senator, what's your impressions of the address and what's your takeaways?
I think the governor delivered his speech. He's no stranger to delivering his speech. There is a lot of optimism in it. I heard a lot of ribbon cuttings. I heard a lot of groundbreakings. I really didn't hear much end dates. And I think that's one thing we need to start doing more of in this territory, getting some timelines. But again, everything could not be included in the speech. So that's where my job coming out to bring the different agencies and ODR and all the stakeholders into the legislature in the committee of jurisdiction, so we can ask the pertinent questions and hold their feet to the fire. Work along with them to make sure there's no impediments and things in a way that legislatively that could impact them from doing the job. But I think it's a start. I heard a lot of optimism of about $20 to $25 billion of projects going out. I thought we were going to tackle a little more mental illness, which is a passion of mine. But I didn't hear it. I was glad to hear that he talked a lot more about affordable housing in this go round. But it was a wealth of knowledge, wealth of information to take in tonight. And, as time progressed, we'll digest it. And I've been sitting on and writing on all the takeaways and the things that I think as a legislator I need to do to hold the feet to the fire and things that we could do to improve in the territory.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Lewis, for calling in. We appreciate it.
Okay, y'all have a wonderful evening, and thank you for all you do for this community.
Thank you. All right, so we've heard from the lawmakers, from the 36 members of the 36th legislature. Give me some of your reactions on feedback on what you heard from the senators. Usi, I want to go to you first.
Well, I think is I use the first adjective of interest and response from members of the body. A good example of that, I listened to Senator Fonseca, who during, I suspect, the first session of the 36th legislature was calling for a state of emergency in regards to health in the territory, the conditions of our hospitals and our health centers. I think outside now of them giving their response to what the governor has said, the legislators and the members of the committees now have the expectation from us in the community to begin to clamp down in the oversight responsibilities. Like the first meeting of every committee, whatever the committee name, should be the bringing in of these departments and agencies, bringing in a copy of their annual budget, their staffing patterns, so that they could have a clear understanding of basically the direction that supposedly they should be headed to as far as agency heads, whether they call commissioners or the department heads, whatever it is. And so that's my first take because the governor has his role to play.
Yes.
The ball is now in the court of the legislatures to make sure that when they appropriate and put a budget out for the fiscal year, we're now in our fiscal year 2025, whether or not the expectations are being met based on the budget that has been passed, whether or not they're filling the staffing positions that have been funded by the legislature. So they have their work cut out for them.
Yeah. And well, our viewers, you have a role to play as well too, because we'd like to hear from you. And whether you're watching live on Channel 12, streaming on Facebook or YouTube, give us a call at 340-718-3339 to share your thoughts on Governor Bryan's 7th State of the Territory address. Now, as we wait to hear from some of our viewers, we heard a lot about, disaster recovery, we heard about education, we heard about a number of things, and we also heard about we heard some things about the bundling and rebuild USVI or whatnot. Now, we spoke about this while we were on break as well too, and we spoke about this prior to as far as the super PMO. Hugo, you had some thoughts on that. I want to hear from you.
Yes, I think it's one of the more misunderstood items, but it's complex as well. So the reason for the super PMO is that the projects were not making enough progress in the smaller tranches. So what the super PMO does is bundles in larger quantities, larger projects, bringing in multifaceted companies that can see these projects too. And there's several ways you can do it. I'll give you an example. If I'm going to build 30 facilities and they're all going to take AC units, there's absolutely no reason to carry 30 different parts and 30 different suppliers and whatnot. But we can do a bundle for that item. We can select, let's say, one manufacturer. We can contract for the different facilities using the super PMO. We can have a set of supplies for maintenance for all of the entities rather than a hodgepodge of lack of a better word, of items to utilize. As far as the $1 billion bundles, it can be done by region in the island, by, like for the schools example, there's a bundle for the schools. It just brings some synergies into what's being done. You get one throat to choke for the entire set of projects, and you get some more accountability in that matter. It's not a management of personnel like it's being couched to be in any instance.
I want to continue the engagement, but we do have a caller from St. Croix on the line. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. So tell us, what were your thoughts on Governor Bryan's 7th State of the Territory address as a resident from the island of St. Croix?
Please, this is Emmanuel. I'm an educator, and I very much was interested in the state of education and healthcare especially. One of the things we tend to forget from year to year in the state of the territory, what happened the previous year, and timetables that was given in previous years. I listened to the progress the governor talked about in education, and as an educator, as it pertains to the test scores, I am very surprised to hear that our test scores got so much better when we're not getting that report on the ground. So I was very much surprised about it. One of the things I want to quickly comment on, I know your time is limited, he talked about some of the projects that we have that the timetable is right on track. But when you look at Benson Mason Pool, for example, that project has already expired in terms of completion date. But he said that was on track. We're talking about $22 billion, but a good economy is not having the money, but making sure that you are making sure the projects are coming online and money circulating for better economy. So I was not too impressed with hearing those promises. I really want to see a lot more work being done to make sure that our economy grows.
All right. Well, thank you so much, caller, for calling in. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Good evening, caller. Good evening. Okay, well, I think we lost that caller. But in the meantime, Donna, you had a bit of you were ready to give your rebuttal, a bit of a rebuttal. Good, let me hear from you.
Well, and it goes back to Hugo and the Super PMO. I think that what is of concern around the super PMOs is it doesn't change the fact that we are challenged with the workforce. So I definitely agree with you on the parts where you talked about the opportunities to bundle the equipment, etc. But how do we truly address the challenge that we have with the workforce capacity and the ability to attract folks here or even house them here in the Virgin Islands as we do this work?
Yeah.
Well, housing is a big issue. You're going to need man camps to be able to bring in the type of labor that needs to come in for this kind of projects. And I think we're still confused publicly. We just heard someone say that you bring them online to grow the economy. You don't bring them online to grow the economy. The rebuild grows the economy. The wages for doing work, the money spent in the community, the money spent on material, the money spent on manufactured goods, that's what builds the economy.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to bring them online, but the economy is grown during the entire process.
Yeah. Well, we do have a caller from the St. Thomas district. Hi, good evening, caller. Hello? Caller? Okay, well, all right. We have another caller from the island of St. Croix. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, bless. Wow, I am big time. Big time with Usi and Dana Fred and you. Oh, this is big time. Yeah, I feel so proud to know that I could talk to these beautiful people. But Senator Richards, quickly, the governor talk about the money that he wanted now take to pay the seniors, right? But it's the same money that was proposed to repair the homes for the senior citizens. I don't understand. And then he did, I don't know, maybe I missed it. Did he talk about the raises, Senator Gregory? I don't know. The raises that you were supporting? I don't know. So quickly, just those two things, Senator Richards and Senator Gregory, if you could just address that for me, please, because it's very important that we take care of our seniors. And he's willing to pay the retirees, fine, but what about the homes that we need for our seniors? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, let me just respond to that. As far as the homes for the seniors, I don't know that the funding that he was referring to was specifically tied to the sports complex in Nazareth in St. Thomas for the young people. So the funding for the seniors is still available. Now as far as the what was the other question? The
raises.
The raises. I think that the caller noted that I was in support of the raises. What I will say is that the report that was done by the commission is flawed. So I am definitely not in support of it as it is written. I believe wholeheartedly that we have to go back to the drawing board on that one. So definitely not in support of it because I don't believe that a good job was done in that report.
And just for a quick clarity, Marcelina, I think one of the things the caller may have grasped onto was the subject matter, and that's why I had yield to Donna, who was a member of the 35th legislature, who had, I believe in the lame duck session, they had passed a piece of legislation to set aside monies for improving homes for senior citizens.
Oh.
And the governor had vetoed that. And then I suspect, if my recollection is correct, he did make some mention in the State of the Territory today, this evening, that monies and money similar to the one for the facility that should be built by Eudora Ken should go in a different direction, and so
yes,
I had yield because you have that experience.
I missed that part,
and you were involved in it, so I don't just articulate and don't give you opportunity to at least clarify that.
Absolutely.
We have another caller. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening.
All right, and you're calling from the St. Thomas, correct?
From St. Thomas District. Yes.
Okay, great. Tell me, what was your reaction? Give us your thoughts, or do you have a question on as far as the governor's 7th State of the Territory address?
Well, I listened to some of the governor's speech, and I realized how he continued to misrepresent the people or mislead the people. Number one, when he was running for his second
election, he had the people well fooled by having his supporters come out to tell them that the retirement has been fixed for life. That was quite misleading and misrepresented. In the territory with these billions of dollars that we have here, before MAP leave office for the rebuilding of the hurricane damage, and up to now, the people not getting the benefits from that money to rebuild the homes. And the problem with the people who manage the affairs is before MAP left office, they had misrepresented the people so badly with the insurance company coming in here, and they actually take advantage of the people who should have been getting insurance money. They exploit the people so badly, and it was designed by the Lieutenant Governor from MAP when he was advising the people to settle with insurance and then go to the contractor to get the house fixed. That was misrepresented.
Well, caller, I do want to thank you for calling in. We do have to keep the line moving, and unfortunately, we've exhausted some of our time, but we thank you for calling in and for sharing your thoughts and concerns.
Well, thank you, but I hope things get better, and I don't see it get better with this administration.
Okay.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you. All right. We have a caller from St. Croix on the line. Good evening, caller.
Hi, yes, good evening. I just want to say good night to your distinguished panelists. The speech of the governor was nice and long, 1 hour and 40 minutes. I wrote notes about it all the way. And it was really about creating a secure future for the people of the VI. Some key areas he attempts to stabilize the GRS, WAPA updates, tourism, and of course there's some effort still to get that 1325 input measure to keep things going. Partnerships and investments, that seemed to be the main passion of the governor, and that's good. I would have liked if he'd mentioned something about the Wynn Museum and repairs to that particular building, because that's there to promote VI culture and history, and that's very important. And finally, there's a ton load of people who didn't pay their taxes for the last year, and, the government needs help too. So we have to always remember it's not just about the government leadership, but people in the community got to, do their bit, and we're all in this together. So that's generally what I had to say, and please continue with the discussion, and we will go from there.
Thank you so much, caller. Appreciate it. All right, we have another caller from the St. Croix district. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening. And my thoughts are, I thought the governor's speech was very upbeat and shared some information, some things we heard before and some things new. But as a resident of St. Croix, I'm part of the Generation X, or the sandwich generation. And for a lot of us, we are struggling to deal with taking care of our parents. Senior care, health care for seniors, I think, is becoming a great priority for many of us. I'm just curious to hear, I would have liked to hear more information around that, and I'm sure they're working on it. But I'm curious to hear from Senator Richards, who I know used to be the chairman of the Health and Hospitals Committee. What are his thoughts in terms of how the governor and the legislature can start prioritizing that? Because it's becoming, I believe, a crisis for so many of us in the U.S. Virgin Islands, trying to make sure that we can take care of our seniors, have the support of our government, so they can experience the latter part of their life with some dignity.
All right. Thank you so much, caller. Uzi, you want to answer his question?
They put me to work.
Yes, they are.
I think and that's, I think in this panel earlier discussion, we was talking about the understanding about what healthcare actually means. We have a crisis in the territory, and that's one thing I could agree with the chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee. because when we look at the level of primary care, I can't speak in St. Thomas and John district, but in St. Croix, the level of primary care is being well met by the Fredstead Health Center under the leadership of Mrs. Masseray Bravo. The Fredstead Health Center have a facility in Frederickstead Town. They have a facility in Princess. They have a facility operating out of the old Sunshine Mall. And so that primary health care is there. Secondary care, which are the inpatient facilities, which people are really complaining about, being provided by, we only have one hospital. And so the opportunity for secondary health care is limited to Wang F. Louis Hospital. We do have a large number of very limitedly regulated private practitioners, because a lot of services are being provided in office, and for those people that have sufficient insurance coverage, they have access to that. But the majority and the masses of people that don't have that type of insurance coverage, that are limited as for health insurance and Medicaid and Medicare, that's a crisis for them. And then lastly, on the topic that he is speaking of, we have the homes for the elderly, convalescent services, for the lack of a better term, is something that in most instances is non-existent in the territory. And I think in the facilities that we have under the government, like in St. Thomas, the Queen Louise, are basically custodial care services, not providing the expansion of the elderly in regards to not only medical care, but human service care, exercise, physical, mental, and well-being. So we do have a long way to go in regards to the state of the healthcare. I just think that the chairman of the committee need to put his focus on how best do they work with the executive branch in getting us to that particular point.
All right. We have another caller on the line from St. Croix. Good evening, caller.
Yeah.
Hi. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening. Listen, I heard Governor say that they're opening a technical college by September. I want to know if that's fact in where they're going to fund it. The next thing, when the governor was running, he said he fixed GEI. To hear them, because these two things is my pet peeve. GEI is fixed. They're still screaming and howling and said they want to go up to DC to get the people, the Republicans, to give them the 1325. So who fooling who? Somebody could answer that for me? I can't.
The ram cover over. I think that's basically what he's speaking to.
Yes, he was. I believe we have Senator DeGraff on the line. Good evening, Senator DeGraff.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
All right, Senator DeGraff, tell us, what were your thoughts on the Governor Bryan's 7th State of the Territory address?
Well, I think the governor had great accomplishments that he mentioned for his administration, past, present, and I guess going forward to the future. So I don't have any issues in terms of what he put out. I would have liked to have heard more information about the senior population, and not just the senior who are maybe, bedridden and the older, more, but the young, vibrant seniors who, who we put out specific services, infrastructure, and events and things for them.
Like me.
So, but I think after 7 years as the governor, coming before the Senate and the people to give the State of the Territory, go out and drive around St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, walk around. What do we see? We see garbage, we see sewage, we see overgrown brush. The reality of things that we see every day, and then to hear that tourism is doing well and everything like that, but the reality is, what are we seeing? So that's the troubling part for me. They don't add up. Everything doesn't add up 1 and 1 to make 2.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator DeGraff, for calling in and giving us your insights.
Okay, thank you very much.
All righty. All right. Now we're hearing from we just heard from Senator DeGraff. We are going to hear from a resident from the St. Croix district. Good evening, caller.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes.
All right. And what were your thoughts this evening on Governor Bryan's 7th State of the Territory address?
Well, I believe that listening to the governor, he seemed to have given a very general and good report of what has happened in the territory. I'm happy to know that quite a bit of money have been set aside, and my concern is that hopefully that these monies would go where they were located. None of it would return to the federal government. I was hoping that I would hear something about the prison, because we said there seemed to be a level of crime and violence going on in Virgin Islands, and so I was hoping that something would be said about plans they have for the prison and those we have in other parts of the United States. So that's one of the things I was hoping that would have been addressed. I didn't hear anything about the prison.
All right. Well, thank you so much, caller, for calling in. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All righty. All right, so we're hearing from the residents. I think a large theme that we're hearing is about the elderly care. It is about health and as well too. And we heard about GRS. We heard about retro payments as well too. And I think notably the governor did say that ultimately they're not going to be able to live up to that promise. Hugo, give me your thoughts on that.
I find the whole conversation on retro to be quite interesting. It also reminds me of the conversation we have all the time about tax payments and back tax payments. We don't seem to get to the root cause of things. So we have retro because we passed on an unfunded liability. Mm-hmm. We whether it was deserved or not, raises were given without funding to pay for those raises, and then you have retro that comes as a result. People not filing taxes in a manner that gets them close to break even and leaves some big sum to be returned results in past due tax returns. And we don't educate our public and talk about how we actually deal with the root cause of things. And I hope that we've ended the practice of unfunded liabilities and approving things to be paid without the funds to pay them, so that we don't have this liability later on. We don't have to deal with retro payments for employees or government workers. And we pay because we can afford, and we fund it, and we pay them at the time of the service.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Janika, we heard a lot from the callers on what they wanted to hear as well too, and notably, I think it's something that you discussed as well too, when it comes to our health care and care for seniors. Tell me, what are your thoughts on the concerns that were voiced by residents calling in?
Well, I think that, and I want to specifically speak about the hospitals. We have been having a serious issue with funding the hospitals. They require significant support from central government constantly, and that either, I think, needs to be something that is accepted and budgeted for, knowing that, listen, we're going to be subsidizing the hospitals, or we need to figure out a way of making them more self-sufficient. So I think that the kind of limbo or dance that's going on every so often, Schneider and Juan Louis build up a lot of debts to vendors, then the central government steps in and helps them out, and then the debts start piling up again. This needs to be addressed, and it was something that Hugo was saying. The root cause of the issue needs to really be investigated and sorted out. Yeah. And I think that a lot of these things that we're speaking about, we
actually have a caller on the line on line 3. Hi, good evening, caller. I believe you're calling from the island of St. Croix.
Yes, I am. Good evening to the panel.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, I just had a question to ask. We see within a week the climate in Washington has changed drastically. So President Trump has dismantled the DEI programs, which have assisted a lot of minorities and women get started up in business. Also, he's talking now of dismantling FEMA, and we're in a hurricane zone. So presently, we have a problem getting I believe $15 billion spent. So I wanted to, I don't know if this question was asked because I had my phone on hold while I was waiting on the panel. What are their thoughts of the effect that these different what President Trump is doing presently, what is the effect you feel that is going to have on the Virgin Islands? He wants to give the money to the state to handle the hurricane relief.
Yeah.
So do you believe we have that capacity to handle that large amount of money? As we see, we're having a problem now.
Yes.
I'll hang up too. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Donna, you want to answer that question?
Sure. So let's start with the FEMA part of the discussion. One of the things that we don't say, in our community, we continue to talk about the slow pace of our projects. But many times we are not very transparent in why the pace is as slow as it is. And I'll tell you that the obligation process that the government has to go through to get the funding obligated through FEMA takes sometimes years. So I don't know that the proposal to give the money to the state is such a bad idea. I think that the state will be responsible and accountable for all of the dollars and accountable for moving the projects faster. If the money flows down to the state in a timely fashion, then the state could start the process. The rebuilding of our schools, it took forever to get those projects obligated. The rebuilding of our hospitals, same thing. So now we have them obligated. That was the next step. If the funds came directly to the state, we would have been further ahead. So that's something that we need to contemplate. And, I don't know that is such a bad idea.
Okay. Well, before we continue this discussion, we do have a caller from St. Thomas on the line. Good evening, caller.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, good evening. Tell us, what are your thoughts from Governor Bryan's State of the Territory address?
Well, there's some things that I think were rather concerning that I would have liked to hear. I think the past Senator Gregory kind of hit on one of them with respect to the marijuana situation. I personally worked in the embryonic stages of trying to get that marijuana bill passed, and it seems like now that it's passed, there's no movement, and I didn't hear the governor speak on that at all. That was a bit concerning. The other thing that I was looking at is I didn't hear a whole lot about the mental illness on the island. There's a lot of mental illness, and we don't have enough people in a role of fightership to take care of these people. I'm not hearing anything in that particular zone. Another issue that has been looking at is policing. I've been in areas where crimes have occurred, and the response time of the police is rather slow. And the reason that it's slow is that there's not enough police. There's still not enough police that is available to handle a lot of the crime that's happening on the island from time to time. So these were some of the major things. The other thing is, they talk about WAPA and the improvements, they're making. But when the power goes out, none of the inhabitants of the island experiences any credit for these outages. The bill remains the same. And I just would have liked to hear somebody speak on some of these things.
All right. Well, thank you so much, caller. We appreciate it. And before we continue the conversation, we do have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. I believe you're calling from the island of St. Croix.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Okay, so give us your thoughts on the State of the Territory address this evening.
Well, actually, I'm talking about the senior citizens. He didn't mention much about the seniors, and that's who make the world really go round. And it was really impeccable. And I think Hugo can do a better job than him. So Hugo Herbs, I have you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Okay.
I didn't realize.
Endorsement?
See, we didn't realize that Hugo started his campaign during the state of territory address.
You did not start a campaign.
He got your people
You're
lined
trying to
up.
start a campaign. We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Hi, yes, good evening.
Yes, you're calling from St. Thomas, I believe?
Yes, good evening, and I say good evening to this distinguished panel. And I have mixed reviews about the Governor's State of the Union, but I wanted to key in specifically on his comments about crime and the homicide rate in the territory. And I didn't hear any appreciable substantive response on what reaction or what actions we will take to reduce crime. And I'm interested in the panel's response, particularly Senator Gregory, an ex-official of the recent legislature, knowing that what we're seeing, the demographic that we're seeing, we have to intervene at the grade school, middle school, high school level if there's any ideas and how we can address that.
All right. Thank you so much, caller.
Well, I think that we have to look at the challenges that we have with crime on two levels. We have and I think you're specifically referring to what's happening with our youths. I believe that we have to address these challenges in our schools from our pre-kindergarten all the way to the 12th grade. So addressing the issues there and the cognitive issues and the challenges that our children are facing, and they have to be identified early. And then, of course, you have the other challenge with those young people or adults that have long graduated and the crime continues in the Virgin Islands. I think, we need to utilize our Department of Labor in a different way. We talk about our workforce development here in the territory, but we need foot soldiers. We need foot soldiers. We need individuals going out on the street corners and having conversations with these young people about the opportunities that are here for them as it relates to training and opportunities for jobs. I don't think that enough of that is being done. We talk about workforce development, but we sit in our offices and talk about it.
Yes.
We need to get and beat the streets so these young people, these individuals could understand that there are opportunities here in the Virgin Islands and the opportunities are here for them, but we have to go to them.
Yeah. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, calling from the island of St. Croix.
Okay, very briefly.
Senator Richards, want to add some knowledge on the issue here. Healthcare is not primary care. Healthcare is actually our morbidity versus our mortality rates, of which no one is collecting. Our healthcare system is not prepared in those areas. Primary care cannot be judged by you having a clinical visit every now and again to determine your health. It determines our resiliency in the healthcare field. Particularly in the island of St. Croix, our challenges are in our emergency room department. Not only that, is in the area that we do not have the care that we need in the event of emergencies for surgeries, etc. So I would say the speech did not shed light on what we're going through because people are having to be sent off island for basic care that should be able to be addressed in our hospital. Not to mention the infrastructure of the hospital itself and what they're dealing with the uncompensated care, not to mention the fact that they're in a modular facility that cannot accommodate the entire people that we need to serve. It is a true picture, and it's scary for what we're dealing with on the inside of that building. So you cannot say that because we have primary health care, which is really clinical visits that's absorbed by Ferguson Health Center, that we are actually having sufficient health care of our people. Because I think you know, as a statistician, that mortality and morbidity determine what your healthcare system is like. Our people are sicker, and we haven't determined how our people are dying and where they're being shipped off to and what's happening to them and how they're getting the care that they need. We have to respond differently. So I did not get that from the state or territory, and I don't feel that our healthcare is resilient because of what I have experienced personally myself with my family member having to be sent off island for life-saving measures that could be done here.
Well, caller, I want to thank you so much. We're going to be able to, we want to be able to get everyone in, but we thank you so much for calling and giving your input and your thoughts.
Oh, I can quickly respond, and I'm very appreciative of the caller adding that clarity. I think the sole point that I would make would be because what we were discussing was the healthcare system in the territory, and the Fresno Health Center is a community healthcare center service, and we have the Department of Health currently, I believe, particularly here in St. Croix, somewhat fragmented by not having a stationary site that has a comprehensive approach to all of the different services.
Yes.
And I think she touched on a point that Ms. Simon was speaking to, which is what one of the things hospitals are suffering from, is the level of uncompensated care, which cuts back on the revenues and the fees that they have to collect based on services rendered. And we have a set ceiling by the federal government of how much money we receive back here for what is on Medicare and Medicare services. So we need to make sure that we can tighten our belt in. And I'm not going to dispute her position that there are a large number of our populace that travel off island to receive certain type of healthcare services, not solely because we don't have a quality service here, but we have limited health manpower and professionals providing the services. And so we want the services like most things. We're in a fast-moving society. We want them now, and we want to get them as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I believe we have another caller on the line from St. Croix. Good evening, caller.
Good evening. First, I want to say, Marcela, you're doing an outstanding job with this session. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, I listened to the entire State of the Territory address, and it feels like there's a disconnect between Governor Bryan and Lieutenant Governor Roach. The reason why I said this is because there's the primary accomplishment we heard the governor praise the Lieutenant Governor's office for was pushing for building a cemetery wall. So for me, it's like, what's the purpose of Lieutenant Governor if we can't hear any quantifiable progress on banking improvements, lower insurance rates, Medicare and Medicaid, and other economic impactful items that are under his purview? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, we have one more caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, hi, good evening. The panel has been doing a wonderful job tonight. My quick statement. The hurricane been about over 7 years ago, and we got a lot of money coming to the territory. COVID came, we got a lot of money came into the territory that even carried the government budget basically for about 2 years. We are putting all this $15 billion into areas that's not going to give any return when that money is over with. We need to put monies into areas that will yield a return to take care of many of our problems. And I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing a lot of fluff in this speech for tonight. You know, that's what we're building schools. Yes, schools is important. But is schools going to yield a return to fix some of the other problems? $15 billion is a lot of money. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose some of that money. So we need to put the money where we're going to have a return after that money dries up, because it will dry up. That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you so much. All right, now, we heard a lot from our residents. Janika, I wanted to go to you first. You were closing out a point. I know we've continued and everything, and we've heard from the residents, talking about healthcare, talking about, and that really, I think, has been the resounding, theme that we've heard this evening from a lot of the callers, is healthcare. Speak to me.
You know, something that struck me was that a lot of the issues that have been discussed this evening all have a common denominator. Usi, you made mention of the lack of practitioners in our healthcare system to provide the services that make people go off island. People going off island for healthcare means that the hospitals and healthcare providers do not get that revenue. So it's a cyclical issue. So the lack of manpower, we lost the services of PAFFOD, and those practitioners have not been replaced largely. So there's a huge deficit in terms of healthcare workers. Construction, infrastructure, another huge deficit of workers there to actually, you know, be doing several major projects at the same time. There's just not the capacity to do that. So I think that a lot of the frictions that we're seeing in a lot of the systems here in the VI can be traced down to, you know, and it's I think I said it before, chicken and egg. We don't have the money to pay for the hiring. We have the lack of labor, which means that our money is not coming in as it should be. Now, I mean, there are two former legislators on the panel, so maybe I should not be the one discussing that, complex issue. But how does it begin to unravel?
Yeah.
Where do we start pulling the threads to get that knot kind of, sorted in a way that we can clearly see a pathway forward? It seems to me, and again, I don't have administrative experience, but this is a real serious issue.
Yeah.
Where do we start? And
Yeah.
I think that's the question.
Hugo, where do we start?
Ground one, right, at the first floor. And like I said before, I'm a root cause person. Let me answer that one caller that asked about credit when the power's out, right? Power is a metered service, right? So when the power is out, the meter doesn't spin.
Not supposed to.
So it can't. It can't spin when it's out. So you can't get a credit because you're not billed for the time when it's out. And I think we need to have more conversations with the public. Because when you listen to the public, they're frustrated. They're dealing with the pains of life, the pains of an aging population, and the concerns about healthcare, and they're not getting a chance to have like open conversation and dialogue about what their concerns are and how they'll be met. So we need to have more dialogue and more understanding of what the needs of the community are, and get them an understanding of what's being done on their behalf to get them what they desire and what they need for their families.
Okay. Donna?
Yeah, very quickly. I really think we have to assess our financial health. And that should have been definitely in our discussion, in the State of the Territory discussion this evening. The governor touted the fact that, we're seeing a boost in our tourism industry. However, we're not seeing it in our revenues. We're not seeing it in our income taxes. We're not seeing it in our gross receipt. He shared that our unemployment rates are down. We're not seeing that in our income taxes. So we need an assessment of exactly what's happening. So it's happening in the territory, in the Bureau of Internal Revenue. What's really going on? Are we looking at how these businesses are paying their taxes? Is there legislation that was passed that's impacting the ability to collect taxes, the gross receipt taxes, in a timely fashion? And I'm aware of some legislation that that we passed that may be impacting that. So these things need to be revisited. We have to look at the bread and butter issues that we have here in the territory in order for us to move forward and to address many of the challenges that we talked about this evening and many of the challenges that we heard this evening.
Hugo, you look like you're itching, but I do have to go to Usi. We're going to carry this.
I just want to have it's time for a sales tax. That's all I want to know.
Usi?
A subject matter that's been discussed for more than 20 years. I'm going to be quick, brief, and to the point and address one of the issues raised by a caller earlier that we didn't get a chance to address was the subject matter raised by the governor with this Virgin Islands Technical College. And before we went to listen to the State of Territory address, we discussed amongst ourselves that we really have a workforce issue.
Yes.
And we have these lot of projects, and just to hear the governor mention that intent, what strikes me most is that how we've been able to keep up the role of the Career and Technical School at the complex.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have, I don't remember, is it the Wheatley Skills School?
Raphael Wheatley Skills Center. That's still operational.
By Charlotte Mali High School. I mean, what is the relationship of us tying these things together to meet the demand for certain skilled workers in the community so that we could have our young people guided and geared towards a profession with a skill that they could contribute to some of the things that we need done in our community. And I think this is a real concern for me. No problem with the college, but how do you utilize the existing facility and resources?
So, if I could just add some clarity to that. I wrote a report in August of last year when they announced the coming online of this technical college, and this was during a meeting of the Career and Technical Education Board. We had Dr. Monique Faulkner saying that the Raphael O. Wheatley Skills Center would serve as the foundation for the college. So and this is now, okay, that was my reporting, and now this is my analysis. What I'm taking from that is that it's going to be an expansion somewhat of the offerings of Raphael Wheatley. So there may not necessarily be two separate institutions, but there may just be a bigger entity that provides that kind of education. So, but I think that it is very important when you're making progress and developments that you are streamlining and that you are coordinating with what is already in existence. So that's just from the reporting that I did last August.
Okay. Hugo, I'm being told that we do have a minute for you to scratch that itch as far as the sale tax question that you proposed.
I'm just saying, we seem that we have a point of sale issue, right? So if the gross receipts aren't being collected, which I think is one of the most horrendous things ever, the way it functions, it continues. If I give you $100,000 and you pay gross receipts and you give her 80 of it, she pays it again. She gives me some, I pay it again. It continues forever. What about a point of sale sales tax where you start to get at the point of sale, sales tax collected? Everyone pays, even undocumented people pay sales tax because when everybody there's no avoiding a sales tax as there is with a gross receipt system. So maybe that's the answer to getting the taxes collected as they need to be.
Well, I would love for us to follow up on this conversation because when I became senator first in 2019, I moved legislation for a tax study commission, and to date, the tax study commission has not been implemented. The governor has not sent down one person to serve on the tax study commission. So our tax structure in the Virgin Islands does need to be revisited. Absolutely.
Uzi, your input on your thoughts on that?
I'm being nice, and I would like for both of the proponents to remember this is a discussion we've been having over the past 30 years. Right? I think the former director of IRB, Mr. Willis, has come before the legislature making these presentations about having sales tax. So it's a very interesting issue and something that I won't want to opine without having sufficient time for us to weigh both sides of the coin.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure sharing this evening with our panel here in the studio and with you, our viewers, the viewers at home and abroad. On behalf of all of us here at WTJX, I am Marcelina Ventura Douglas. Have a good night.
This program was underwritten in part by
VI Slice Moderate Income Home Ownership Program helps eligible VI residents buy or build their first home. Check eligibility requirements and a list of participating lenders at vislice.com. Your dream home awaits.
And viewers like you.